So let's get right to that memory Tetris. What do you say? What do you say? Let's make them pieces fit. Get them good and connected. Connect them fragments. Okay. I don't remember where we were going to go. So let's see. I'm going to dig through here. Okay. Hojo details, don't have that. Continuation, don't have that. Third year's curse of Oishiro-sama, don't have that. An L5 stage patience dissection is required. Help from the Queen Carrier is required. Okay. So... help from the Queen Carrier is required. I think we have that already, but I'm gonna make sure. I want something else to maybe mention it beforehand. Results of the first C-103, don't have that. Deja Vu, 1, 2, 3, 4. Jiro Tomatake, the old guy. Routine inspection. Preview of lots, new wind. These are characters. Okay. So, a life specimen for research is required. A tragedy of the day. Okay, we did. Yeah, okay. I thought so. Hold on. I keep... like, why don't I just keep this program going? I keep forgetting to enable Joy to Key. There we go. Now we're all good. I'm getting it! Don't worry, I'll pick up in a second. I was half asleep, so I didn't even hear the phone ringing nearby. After a while, I finally realized the phone was ringing, and a ringing phone means there's some kind of emergency. It's 2 in the morning. Who would even call me at this time of the night? It's Takano-san. She's never called me for a personal reason. At the Institute, she's ranked just below me, so she's basically responsible for running it. But for her to call me this late at night, it must be an emergency.
遅くなりました。末期患者が出たというのは本当ですか？
ええ。生きた検体が欲しいと思っていたら本当に運よく。
I initially thought that she'd abducted someone. The man had already been moved to the research area in the clinic's basement. Having been tied down to the examination table, he's struggling against his restraints, but more as though he's deranged than actually resisting. I can't even understand what he's saying. He sounds angry, sorrowful, and like a child throwing a tantrum all at once. It's obvious he's not in the right state of mind.
麻酔で眠らせましょう。このままでは自分の舌を飲み込んで窒息しかねません。
もう少し状態を観察したかったのですけれど、仕方ありませんわね。
Takano wants to watch a dude thrash about on a table. Girl needs some hobbies, I think. Good thing that she's got Tomitake. One of the staff with a white gown got the anesthesia ready. Even a normal person would struggle to escape a restraining table in this suspicious room, but this man's behavior is at an abnormal level. I'm sure Okunogi-san and his friends from the Mountain Dogs are the ones who captured him. Capturing a man in this state of mind couldn't have been easy. According to Takano, she ran into this patient on her way home from the clinic by accident. She brought him back here, tested him, and the result came back positive. Of course, I have no intention of just believing what she's telling me, but there is no question that this man is at the terminal stage, and a live specimen is exactly what we need to research the syndrome.
この男は何者です？
あの男が持っていた新聞の包み。
She's got the face of a very trustable person. I do not know what you mean.
中に何が入っていたと思います？
これは何です？
There's something wrapped in a bloody newspaper on a tray nearby. Looking at the blood-drenched paper, I can only imagine there's something gruesome inside of it. Yet Takano-san looked like she wanted to surprise me with something interesting.
これはひどい。
Takano, are you being needlessly morbid again? We had a talk about this. It's a bloody right arm. The man on the table still has his. This right arm does not belong to him. So who does it belong to? I'm used to looking at things like this as a doctor, but the horrible cross-section makes me want to look away. It wasn't done according to a medically acceptable method, that's for sure. It was obviously done out of cruelty.
状況から考えてこの男が切り取ったものと考えていいでしょうね。
つまり彼は近隣で起こった何らかの事件の犯人ということですね。
At one point, there was no way of knowing who the right arm belonged to, but the next morning, the dismemberment murder at the damn construction site. Funny typo. That's good. I like that. And they mentioned that his right arm is still missing, so we learned who the arm belonged to.
この男前科者だそうで、しかもその上執行猶予期間中だとか。にもかかわらずまた罪を犯してしまう。
That damn construction site!
それで殺人の発覚を恐れて遺体を隠そうと思ったのでしょうね。
状況にもよるでしょうが、懲役数年で済むというものではなさそうですね。
入江所長もこんな社会のクズが相手なら解剖に躊躇はないのでは？
社会のクズがさらに犯罪を重ね、さらにその上ひなみ沢症候群で凶暴化したのか。
Whatever you need to tell yourself to feel better about this, EDA.
前科を食い入る善良な小市民がひなみ沢症候群で凶暴化して罪を犯したのか。前者ならともかく後者ならば彼には何の罪もありませんよ。
That's why Hinamizawa syndrome is so terrifying. We can't tell if the syndrome is the cause of the crime or it's simply a problem of human nature, but what causes a defect in human nature in the first place. That's precisely EDA's area of research. Hate the crime, not the criminal. Can criminals only be corrected by punishing them with imprisonment? If a person commits a crime because of a mental disorder but then gets treatment, is he corrected? In other words, there's no crimes in this world, only patients awaiting treatment without anyone else being able to understand them. In the medieval times, patients with mental disorders were said to be possessed by demons, and they were either confined or killed. Centuries after, they were finally acknowledged as mentally ill people who needed treatment. Perception can change with time. Even if they're called criminals now, maybe after several centuries, those criminals will be acknowledged as patients who were entitled to appropriate treatment, explaining crimes through illness instead of malice. That's my life's work. Hinamizawa syndrome is a strange disease that can support my theory. Solving its mysteries is extremely important to me. To solve those mysteries, I need a medical sacrifice. It's an extremely sinful thing to do, but there's no way to unravel this without it. The EDA Institute was authorized to take such drastic measures if necessary. That's why I was asked about it so many times when I accepted the position of director. And finally, the opportunity is here. This would be the first step in our research on this strange disease, but even now, I'm a little hesitant. I've opened up human bodies in many surgeries. What I'll be doing this, man, is something very similar, but there's also something that's very different. What I did before was part of treatment. I did it to save the patients' lives. I did it so the patients could have a better future. What I'm trying to do here isn't treatment. He will die at the end of it. His death will be far from humane. I'm going to violate nature and force him to stay alive while I open his living brain.
入江所長聞いてらっしゃいます？
ああ、すみません。もう一度お願いします。
解剖計画書を提出し、東京に応援を要請した方が良いかと思います。何しろ、単に生きてるだけでなく、末期症状を起こしている大変貴重な検体ですもの。 慎重な解剖が求められますわね。
そうですね。おっしゃる通りです。そのようにしましょう。
それまでに数日の猶予があると思います。そこで麻酔を解いていくつかの反応実験をしてみたいのですが。
危険ではありませんか？たとえ拘束を解かなくても何が起こるか分かりませんよ。
ようやく手に入った検体なんですもの。ただ脳を覗くだけじゃもったいないですわ。
Takano-san's unusual cheerfulness made me feel odd. Maybe her reaction is normal. Maybe I'm the one who's not reacting normally in this situation. I'm here only for the research, so I should be expected to have this opportunity to perform our first live dissection, but I'm still hesitant. How can I call myself a researcher? Researchers of the past were brave enough to cross the line, and that's how they accomplished many things. I've seen many brains, I've operated on them, I've lost some patients too, but I never thought of anything of it because I knew I did the right thing, even when my hard work was denied afterwards. If it pained me to think of that, then I just needed to advance the field of medicine to ensure their deaths weren't wasted. That's the true form of those advancing the field of medicine. Yet, why was my heart tormented so much by changing the name from treatment to dissection? Does it mean I'm not man enough to emulate those great men of the past who opened the doors to new medicine? That I don't have the power to develop new advances myself?
あら、どうなさいましたの、所長。お休みのところを無理に起こしてしまったので、ご気分が優れませんのかしら。
Takano is pretending to be concerned about me, but she knows. She knows I'm still hesitating, and she's telling me that I should be ashamed as a researcher for feeling that way. I shook my head to clear it of sleepiness. Remember the resolve that brought me here to this day. I already have blood on my hands, but if I stop now, their lives will be wasted. Those who shed their blood can only rest in peace once they've become the cornerstones of great research. I shook my head once more and reminded myself that I'm a researcher.
考え事をしていただけです。高野さんは東京との調整をお願いいたします。日程が決まりましたら教えてください。
ええ、了解いたしましたわ。眠気も吹っ飛んでしまいますわね。
The least I can do is my best, so this life won't be wasted. If he bleeds, I can't waste even a drop of his blood. After scolding my staff for their indiscretion and discussing the dissection with such excitement, I returned to my office. Oh boy. Okay, so we now know live dissections are a thing. Our boy Irie, not so clean. Alright. The second, the death of the construction site manager is required. The hospitalization of Satoko Hojo is required. I think we can do this one too. Yep. Alright. Satoshi-kun is a good brother who takes great care of his sister. He went to visit Satoko-chan straight after school and kept encouraging her to get better every day. Without even hearing Satoshi-kun's stories, it's obvious to me that Satoko-chan never had a good relationship with their step-parents. She especially didn't get along with her stepfather. Satoko-chan even called a child abuse hotline once. Not only that, her parents ended up dying in an accident, so she just wasn't able to understand all that damage. Satoko-chan is still very young, so everything must have been horrible for her to go through. Fortunately, she has a wonderful brother. Emotional wounds are hard to heal, but nothing heals those wounds better than the love from family members. I'm sure that one day Satoko-chan will be able to smile again. She's still in shock, but when she talks to Satoshi-kun, she smiles a little bit. Oishi from the police department keeps requesting to see her, but I think I need to protect her just a little longer. While he's passionate about his job, I think he'd be a touch more sensitive. If he reminds her of her parents' accident, her emotional wounds will start to open again. That's the one point I worry about with Satoko-chan. I heard someone knocking on the door. It was Takano-san. It doesn't look right wearing a nurse's uniform like that. She's a licensed doctor, so she'd wear a white coat and act like one. Maybe this was fun for her, but I think she might be insulting the real nurses. I didn't say anything, though.
入江先生、ちょっとよろしいですか？
ああ、はい。それではサトシ君、私は失礼します。
サトシくん、さとこちゃんと遊んであげててね。ずっと一人でいるからきっと寂しいと思うの。ね。
そんなことございませんわよ。
ではサトシ君、よろしくお願いします。
I got up and let Satoshi-kun take over.
ところで何かありましたか？
ここではなんですので、所長室で。
Takano-san smiled menacingly. Takano-san smiled meaningfully. Usually, smiles bring happy feelings, but when it comes to Takano-san, that's rarely the case.
それは本当ですか？
ええ、簡易検査の結果、レベル3以上と思われる高い発症レベルの可能性が指摘されました。彼女をさらに入院させ、より精度の高い検査を行う必要があります。結果待ちですが、私の見たところ、レベル4の可能性すらあり得るかと。
Takano-san's eyes sparkled in a weird way. There's a reason for that. For us, finding patients in the terminal stage is a valuable boon to our research. In fact, as a result of dissecting the murder suspect from last year, we made great progress in our research. In other words, we finally managed to isolate the pathogen. We also discovered that when the host dies, the pathogen melts away within a few hours. Once that happens, it's undetectable. That's why we never found the pathogen when we performed autopsies. Our research made a lot of progress after that. When we found what we found in the past year is easily surpassed what the late Dr. Takano found in decades. We're now studying the nature, the effect, and the symptoms of the pathogen, as well as the treatments and vaccines. In other words, a living specimen who's at the terminal stage is a necessity for our research. However, we rarely find a patient who's gone that far, who's reached level 5. Hinamazawa syndrome once created huge numbers of level 5 patients, but today it doesn't have such potency. Because of that, we have to secure level 5 patients, or patients who are close to reaching level 5, as quickly as possible. Satoko-chan probably qualifies to be that next sacrifice. To keep this strange disease a secret, we can't let patients who may be level 5 go. We have to run more tests first, then we'll figure out what to do next. In any case, Satoko-chan seems so calm. Her behavior is nothing like the man from last year. Initial tests are in error sometimes. We'll have to wait for the results of more detailed tests to determine how serious her condition is.
わかりました。
経過観察のため入院ということにしましょう。スタッフの皆さんへの手配をお願いいたします。
That sounds like a formal answer, but if the results come back positive, that will be a green light for her dissection. I don't know Satoko-chan that well, but I've known her brother Satoshi-kun through the baseball team for a long time. How could I dissect the apple of Satoshi-kun's eyes? I can feel scary images flashing in my head for the first time.
ご安心を。万事すでに手配させておりますわ。
She smiled as if telling me that the dissection is already being prepared for too. Is it just her who's smiling? Am I smiling like her too? When I dissected that man last year, I did feel guilt beforehand. But once I started, it was like I was in paradise. All the pieces of the puzzle that were left by the late Dr. Takano fell into place, and at the same time they didn't. How exciting it was! Knowing that we are the first ones to take the first steps to solve a mystery, that is. I don't even know how to explain this feeling to those who have never experienced it. There's no way to describe it with words. The only thing I can say is even a year later, I still remember it vividly. So if the results show that Satoshi-kun's beloved sister is to be dissected, can I control myself? Can I stay calm? But that means I'm a failure of a human being. I know very well that the Hojo family was treated poorly by the villagers, and know that Satoko-chan had to go through. Also, I know Satoshi-kun loves his sister, who is his one and only blood relative. How can I dissect Satoko-chan using my research as an excuse? I didn't feel much guilt for the man from last year, but I feel unbearable guilt towards Satoko-chan. That means what I did last year was very sinful. I don't care if a stranger dies, but I don't want Satoko-chan to die. That's not right. All lives are equally precious. I tried to convince myself that he was a violent murderer, and maybe he only became that way because he was at the terminal stage. I don't know anything about him before he became deranged. Maybe he was a model citizen who was worthy of respect. Unfortunately, he became ill and ended up doing what he did. Maybe he was a victim himself. Your whole house smells like paint? That doesn't sound very, that doesn't sound very pleasant. Yeah, that's not the kind of high I'm looking for. Unfortunately, he became ill and ended up doing what he did. Maybe he was a victim himself, just like my father. I know more about Higurashi syndrome than anybody. This disease makes people act in bizarre ways, without those people realizing it. So when the people at the terminal stage do such strange and violent things, one should be sympathetic. I already knew that back when I decided to go down this path. I should have remembered it sooner, but I only did just now. I finally realized what sinful research I'm working on. Satoko Hojo's detailed test results came back. The results say level 5. She's at the terminal stage of the terminal stage. It's actually a surprising result. In last year's case, the patient was extremely deranged. According to Takano-san's records, he complained about itching coming from lymph nodes all over his body and wanted to claw at his throat, just as the late Dr. Takano mentioned. But Satoko-chan isn't displaying such symptoms. Even in the late Takano's data, throat clawing is said to be a characteristic symptom of terminal stage patients. However, not all patients experience that symptom. Besides, emotional expression is very different in each person. Even if it's the same emotion, one patient may express it rather violently and another may express it calmly. There's no way of knowing just by looking at a person. But Satoko-chan's detailed test results says that she is at the terminal stage of terminal stage level 5. In other words, she may be feeling what the man from last year was feeling, it's just that she isn't expressing that feeling in the same way that man was. Higurashi syndrome affects the frontal lobes of the brain. It stimulates the most primitive emotions, doubt, very strongly. As a result, terminal patients are trapped in delusions and paranoia and end up committing horrible crimes. Satoko-chan seems to show improvement when she's exchanging friendly words with Satoshi-kun, but there's a paranoia stirring inside her that may put her in a deranged state at any moment. I can't let her leave the clinic like this. However, if things go according to the manual, I will have to make a decision on her dissection. My decision will only be a formality. I can't actually refuse. Takano-san appears to be already working on the dissection schedule. That plan must have come to me. Would I feel the same way while dissecting Satoko-chan? Would I be able to experience that trance once again? No, the question is, can I fight the temptation? As I pretend to question myself, I'm letting Takano-san prepare things on her own. But by doing so, I am passively agreeing to Satoko-chan's dissection. If possible, I want to save Satoko-chan. I don't want her to be a sacrifice for this research. I don't want to dissect her. Then what about the man from last year? Do I only care about the lives of people I know? If I don't dissect her, do I let her live and leave the clinic? Do I simply wait for her to become deranged to commit a horrible crime? And then she'll end up here? Just like the man from last year, and I'll end up dissecting her anyway. The man from last year was dissected alive and kept that way for several months. With his skull left open, he wasn't allowed to die for several months. He was kept alive just for our cruel experiments. I don't want to do that to her. I don't know what to do. Even debating and agonizing over it is leading towards consent to her dissection by elimination. Woof! That's rough, man! Months! Holy shit! Okay, so third sacrifice. Rika's father being marked as an opportunist, that's not happened yet. Third year's curse does not happen yet. The discontinuation has not happened yet either. A level 5 patient's dissection is required. Help from the Queen Carrier has arrived. So do we have, with the Rika one we did earlier, we have her consent, right? I think we have her consent. Help from the Queen Carrier is required. Okay. I'm just gonna save. Not that, like I said, not that failing matters, but I'm a weirdo. Yeah, she said she'd do it, so I think we're good. I'm gonna go ahead and check out and see if research is going well. Okay, research is going well. Fantastic.
フルデさん、お待たせしました。今、最後の検査を終えたところです。もうすぐ戻ってくると思います。
Good news, everybody. The research is going well.
娘が村のために役に立てばいいのですが。
とんでもない。リカさんの協力は村を救うことにもなります。おかげでようやく治療方法にも目処がついてきたところです。仕組みはまだ調べているところですが、リカさんの存在がやはり村人にとってとても大切なものであることが分かってきました。レベルの進んでしまった一般感染者は自力ではそのレベルを下げて症状を安定させるのが非常に困難です。ですが女王感染者に接近することで脳内にある種の物質が作られることが分かっています。その物質には鎮静効果があり、また進んでしまった症状のレベルを抑え回復させる力もあるようなのです。この物質を処方できるようになれば治療の強力な決め手となるでしょう。
そうですか。リカにそのような力が。
驚かれるには値しないのでは。
Furude juice. Oh my god.
フルデの巫女には荒れた心、鬼を鎮める神追力があると。
Because it's not in Rika's mom anymore.
いるんではありませんでした。
When Rika was born, it passes. So, like, people did love her mom at first. Like they all gravitated around her mom, like the same way that they do Rika. But when Rika was born, like that just inherently shifted. So, it's not in her mom anymore.
私たちが解明しなくても村の数百年にわたる歴史はすでにそれを知っていたわけですわ。
そうですね。大昔の方の聡明さは時に現代医学から見ても感心させられます。
検査が終わったのです。
リカ、大変だったな。
Mom is 100% normie. That's kind of like the impression we're given.
疲れただろ。
Like the parasite moved the moment Rika was born. Like it's just, that's how it works.
これで自動販売機でジュースを買ってきなさい。
血をいっぱい抜かれたから補給なのです。
Rika took a 100 coin that was offered to her and ran out into the hallway.
本当にリカさんの協力のおかげです。彼女が献身的に協力に応じてくれなければこれほどまでに研究が進むことはありませんでした。
リカは自分の友達もその病気にかかっているということを気にしていて、友達のためにも協力したいと常に言っていました。どうか先生方。
I mean, they're not deceiving you at this point. Like, this is literally, like, the whole point of these pieces is that everything you're being shown is true. Like, these are all the truths that are being observed right now. Like, that's kind of been the case for the last two arcs.
もちろんです。毎週日曜日に貴重な時間を割いていただいているのです。必ずや成果にしてみせます。今後もリカさんに過酷な実験を強いることがあると思いますが、どうかお許しいただければと思います。
彼女に危害を加え
I think we
る
can
こと
take
は
everything at this
絶
point
対
at
にあり
face
ません
value.
わ。彼女はとてもと
I
て
think
も
if somebody's
大切な
knowingly
身なんです。
lying, they would also tell us. Like, they've kind of shown Takano to kind of be two-faced in ways that she says something to somebody and then the narration is like, yeah, but that's not true. So, again, I think that everything you're being shown right now, unless otherwise stated, you can probably go ahead and take at face value, because that's kind of the whole point of the fragments, is to give you the actual pieces, everything that's happened. So.
大昔の村人はどのようにしてこの病気のことを知り、
There you go. We're without a biased narration.
古田家にその女王の血が流れていることを知ったのやら、ご先祖様たちにはつくづく頭が下がります。
それで実はまた辛いご協力をお願いしなくてはなりません。彼女の脳脊髄液の採取のご許可をいただきたいのです。また場合によっては彼女の頭蓋に閃光を開け、直接頭部の中を検査させていただくことになるかもしれません。頭
蓋骨に穴ですか？
もちろん安全性には最大限注意します。リカさんはたった一人しかいない女王感染者なのです。間違っても危害を加えることがないよう、私どもで最も安全な方法を模索した上で提案させていただいています。
もちろんリカちゃんは女の子ですもの。頭部先行周辺の頭髪には気を使いますので、ただ経過を慎重に見るためにしばらく入院をしてもらうことになりますが。
もちろんその間面会謝絶ということはありません。検査にもぜひ立ち会ってください。お父さんが身近におられた方がリカさんも安心するでしょう。
その検査はどうしても必要なもので、絶対に安全なものなのですか？
脳脊髄液の採取も頭蓋の潜行もどちらも 100% の安全を保証することはできません。常に 1% の危険があります。またリカさんに身体的あるいは精神的苦痛を与えるでしょう。
リパー。
いくら重要な検査といえどもご家族の同意なしには行えません。
リカちゃんには実はもう同じ話をしていますわ。
Actually, we already talked to her, because we knew that you would probably hem and haw about it, so we just went ahead and talked to her, because Rika's down for everything. She's good to go. She offered to just throw the damn needle into her head herself. She was ready.
自分は構わないと、それはもうあっけらかんと。
リカさんには危険や苦痛が伴う可能性があることをもちろん十分に説明しています。ですがやはり保護者の方の承諾をいただかないわけにはいきません。
リカは自分のことを本当にお社様の生まれ変わりだと信じている時があります。だから村人のために自分の身を捧げるのが自分の義務だと思っているところがあるのかもしれません。
立派なお子さんだと思います。
一応家内とも相談させてください。納得はしてくれているのですが、やはりことがことなので話をしないわけにもいかない。
ええ、よくご相談な。
その検査は病気の根絶のために重要な意味があるのですね。
はい、ひなみ沢症候群のベールを剥ぐ決定的なものになるでしょ
う。決定的なものの第一歩にですわね。
すでにご説明しておりますように、女王感染者に万一のことがあった場合、感染コミュニティに致命的な崩壊をもたらす危険性が予見されています。
If Rika dies, Oyashiro-sama gets very mad and farts on Hinamizawa, and that's like end game.
平たく申し上げると、村人全員が突如として末期発症を起こす可能性もあるということです。
ええ、急性発症の平均から見て女王感染者死亡から48時間以内に全感染者が末期発症を起こします。 それだけは絶対に防がなくてはなりません。
リカが死ぬようなことがあれば村中が大パニックに陥って恐ろしいことに。
はい、それを防ぐのも私たちの役目です。そのために危険を冒さなければならないのはとても皮肉なことですが、根絶のためには避けて通れない道だと思っています。
入江先生、必ずその検査を成功させていただけますか？
ですから医学には 100% や絶対などという。
ええ。
Irie answered with a nod, interrupting Takano's vague
私
response.
入江京介がリカさんを救います。村人も救います。絶対にです。
わかりました。家内と相談させてください。その上で後日改めてお返事させていただきます。
はい、よろしくお願いいたします。
What are you giggling about? After Rika and her father left, Takano started
ど
to
うしました
laugh.
か？何か愉快なことでも。
Little Miss Giggle Pants over here. Just having herself a good old time, apparently.
いえいえ、患者とご家族から律儀に事前承諾を取られていたのがなんだかおかしくって。
リカさんには本来無用の苦痛を強いています。それくらいは最低限の礼儀だと思いまして、去年の男も正常な状態にあれば事前承諾を取りたかったところです。
入江所長は
I want your consent to let me cut your head open and leave your brain exposed to the air and keep you drugged to the point of not living. I want to do that for a few months. Are you good with that? You cool with that, Chief? Just want to make sure you'll die at the end, but I want you to be cool with it. That's the thing. I just need you to be cool with it.
それはどういう意味ですか？
This type of teasing was normal from Takano, but maybe she had gone a little too far. Irie made it clear how displeased he was to hear that.
南沢症候群の研究は生きた人間を研究対象とすることでのみ進められる。それが分かってなお、あなたはこの研究を進めることに罪の意識を感じている。
罪の意識は必要です。
Come on, Poncho! Welcome. Hope you're doing well this evening.
殺人であれ解剖であれ、相手に死を強いる点で変わりません。私たちはその罪を受け止めてなお、その死を無駄にしないために最大限の努力と研究を重ねなくてはなりません。
ご高説ですわね。では入江所長、あなたはこれまで間違いなく非合法とされる実験を行う際、何度の事前承諾を取られたというんですの？
Irie didn't think Takano knew about
あな
that.
たの人の罪は脳の疾患によるものという独りよがりで、一体何人の患者が事前承諾なくあなたの研究対象とされてきたのかしら？
それは
常識は時代で変わる。当時は医者が治療をいちいち説明することなどなかったし、事前承諾なんて大したものではなかった。だから当時のことは気にしなくていいんじゃないですかしら。今は倫理上問題があっても当時は問題なかった。ならばいいじゃありませんの。でもそれに罪を感じているからリカちゃんやあの男にさえも事前承諾が取りたかった。
それは誤解です。そもそも治療と解剖では患者。
ねえ坊や、あなたが欲しいのは事前承諾という名の免罪符。そうでしょ？あなたが欲しいのは過去の罪をあがないたいという心を満たすだけの欺瞞、 そのためだけの免罪符。後悔しているならば二度と脳に関わらなければいい。なのにだらだらと後悔しながら、あなたはいつまでも未練がましくこの世界で脳に関わっている。その罪の意識が本物なら、あなたはあの時所長就任の話を断ればよかったはず。そうでしょう、坊や。
とても深いです。私は失礼させて。
聞きなさい。医学は常にその時代の倫理や価値観との戦いから勝ち取られるの。
Yeah, Takada's got a point here. It's not like it's... Yeah, like she's got him dead to rights.
かつて高野先生がひなみ沢症候群の存在を予見した時、その時代の権威たちは自分たちの無知を棚に上げ、その先見性を嘲笑った。
She really leans into that boy.
でも病に倒れる直前まで研究を捨てなかったわ。必ず自分がいつか評価される日が来ると信じて、そしてその日が自分の死後であったとしても必ず来ると信じて。
Wasn't there a piece that required Dr. Takano's death? Like, I guess this is a confirmation that he's dead. I don't know if we have to see it directly or not.
それは強い信念と揺らぎのない鉄の意志があるから成し遂げられること。
Yeah, I mean, I have access to all the sound effects. Like, they're completely uncompressed.
そうでなければ時代の無理解に高野先生は屈していたはず。研究はね、意志の力で成し遂げる。
I'm pretty sure it's a sound effect. It's either a sound effect or it's another piece of music being played over top of the currently playing track. I can easily look through the files later.
絶対的に強固な意志だけが結果を紡ぎ出す。でもあなたにはそれがない。あなたは自分の実績を誇るべきか恥じるべきかすら自分で決めかねている臆病者よ。そんな中途半端な覚悟でよくこのような研究所の所長を引き受けられ
I'll
た
give it a
もの
look.
ね。
I'll look for it a bit after stream, either tonight or I'll look for it tomorrow sometime.
血塗られた両手をさらに血に浸すことでしか明かせぬ研究だと最初から分かっていたはずなのに。
否定はしません。私は中途半端かもしれない。
ならば所長を辞任なさっては。守秘義務は残るでしょうけど、あなたはこれ以上罪の意識に苛まれなくて済むでしょう。私にとってあなたはパートナーである以前にクライアントが要求した人事上の駒でしかない。こうして研究機関が成立した今、あなたの存在はもう重要ではないの。
Damn!
しかもその上、研究に対する覚悟が足りず。
Oh no, Sayara hates Takano even more now. She's making sense.
私は一人でも研究をやめない。どんな罪も後悔も恐れない。強固な意志だけが未来を紡ぐ。かつて高野先生が高潔な精神で成し遂げたように。
立派な決意だと思います。ですが私もあなたに及ばないにしてもわずかの決意があってここへ来ています。そしてあなたの言う通り私の手はすでに血にまみれています。そしてひなみ沢に来てさらに血に浸しました。だからその責任を全うするまでは私は逃げることはできません。相変わらず私は罪を清算できず苛まれ続けるでしょう。でも逃げない。必ずひなみ沢症候群の研究を決着させます。それだけがこの研究に命を捧げてくださった方、そしてこれから捧げることになるかもしれない方への最後の誠意だと思っています。
Irie wore a determined look on his face. He appeared different from even a moment before, when he was baffled by Takano having brought up those painful memories. For a short while, Irie's eyes displayed a strong will, and he turned
おそら
around.
く リカさんの検査は承諾が取れるでしょう。準備をお願いします。
ええ、所長。
They got their consent the following week. Okay, so we got some things. We got some tidbits here. Let's look around. Play around with these pieces a little more. What do we got? Okay, so still go just detailed test results. Nope. Okay, third year has not happened. Rika's father is an opportunist. Death of Satoko. That's not happened yet. So, at a quarry in Yagouchi, help from the Queen Carrier is required. A quarry in Yagouchi. I think that we have that. Okay, there we go. When researching Hinamizawa syndrome, there's something very important that needs to be discussed first. If something happens to the Queen Carrier, the village will collapse. In his article, my grandfather called it the most dangerous situation. According to my grandfather, if the Queen Carrier dies, all the infected persons will go terminal within 48 hours. This may sound unbelievable at first, but research on the collapse of past local religions and group suicides around the world should indicate that there is some truth to it. Among all the mysterious incidents around the world, there are some who were caused by parasites controlling entire communities, very similar to Hinamizawa syndrome. Grandfather picked a few cases that are very similar to the syndrome and investigated them. As a result, he confirmed multiple cases of entire communities losing their minds after the death of a religious leader or founder and finally annihilating themselves. He stated that, on average, it happened within 48 hours. It's clear that infected people are affected by the Queen Carrier, and the condition of the Queen Carrier is, in fact, affecting the entire village. Our statistics already prove that on weeks Rika felt sick and visited the clinic, we saw an exceptionally high number of visitors. Rika being sick with a simple cold had a massive impact. If something particularly bad happened to her, we'd be facing a serious situation within 48 hours. That's why the EDA Institute asked to protect Rika Furude, the Queen Carrier, and its most important mission of the Hinamizawa Syndrome Research Project. She's already agreed to help us in our research, but we have to be very careful not to put her in any danger. Also, we have to protect her from anyone who would try to harm her. Her life is equal to the lives of 2,000 villagers. But what if something happens to her by accident? The EDA Institute must prepare for that situation. That's why I worked on a draft of an emergency manual when the EDA Institute was first established. It's a precaution in case the Queen Carrier dies or if infected people show acute symptoms due to the death of the Queen Carrier. This is an emergency procedure which must be followed within 48 hours of the mass occurrence of acute symptoms. The final measure is to prevent the damage from spreading to nearby areas. The plan uses gas, making it look like a natural disaster. My client, the Alphabet Project, took the responsibility of working out the details of the plan. They're used to dealing with things like nuclear and biological weapons, so they ended up being such a big help. There's no way I could ever come up with a plan on my own and execute 2,000 villagers. Through a dummy company, the Ground SDF have secured a closed quarry in the Yagouchi region upstream of Hinamizawa. It is to be the secret storage base for the equipment we'd use in that operation. Yeah, if something happens, we release the hounds. Equipment that sprays deadly gas that kills people as if they were falling asleep is stored here. In the case of an emergency, a special unit of the Ground SDF is to use this equipment to destroy the village. However, preparing for an execution of villagers itself is politically dangerous, so if I'm going to insist on them getting the equipment ready, I have to make them understand how dangerous Hinamizawa syndrome is, and also how urgent the need is to have a contingency plan. I have to prove the need for a plan by showing them enough data. So the files that my grandfather kept intact came quite in handy. When the clients read my grandfather's articles about the syndrome, they were surprised to see how catastrophic things could be in the worst-case scenario.
つまり、女王である一人の少女に何かがあれば、村人2000人以上が全員錯乱するということなのですね。
はい。 ひなみ沢症候群に極めて類似するいくつかのケースでは集団自殺を示すものが少なくありませんが、ひなみ沢症候群の場合、強い疑心暗鬼や過剰なまでの危機意識から何かの過剰防衛を行う可能性があり、被害それらは無政府状態の暴動から始まり、猟奇的なあるいは宗教的終末感にも似た異常な状況を作り出すでしょう。これに対する事前の鎮圧策を用意しなかった場合、世界の注目を浴びることは避けられません。またその猶予は事態発生から48時間しかありません。
つまりいざ事が起こったらもう誰にも防げないということですな。
感染者全員を48時間以内に全員治療することは不可能なのかね。
Oh, we can treat them all right.
無理だろう。それに治療方法すら確立していないし、研究所の規模では村人全員の救済は物理的に不可能だ。しかしこのような恐ろしく珍しい病気があるとは世の中わからんもんですな。
常に最悪の事態に備えることは国防にも通じますし、我々アルファベットプロジェクトの理念でもあります。そして使うことが目的なのではなく、備えることそのものが肝要なのです。
確かにおっしゃる通りですな。運用規定については決済区分の強化などまだ検討したいところはありますが、最悪の事態に対応する準備が必要だということは理解できました。
都市沈黙船の研究班にひなみ沢地区沈黙船のシミュレーションをさせましょう。これは至急行われる必要があると思います。こうしている間にも女王感染者の少女が車にはねられて死んでしまう可能性だってあるのですから。高野さんさ、ありがとう。また質問しますので着席してくださって結構です。
Thanks to a push from one of my backers, things were decided without too much of a problem. It took me almost all day to explain it to them, but it only took a short time to come to a decision. Nobody criticized, ridiculed, or tried to reject my grandfather's articles out of hand. In the files they're all reading today are the very same shameful articles those haughty authorities left their footprints on as they trampled them in my grandfather's heart. But they aren't ridiculing the articles, they are reading what was once rejected. It's nothing big at a glance, but in this moment, my grandfather's research is being recognized for the first time. My heart is filled with the satisfaction to see people discussing amongst each other while pointing to my grandfather's files and raising them as proof. I've worked so hard for this day. Grandpa in heaven, can you see this? She just wants her grandpa. She just loves her grandpa a lot. That's all. That's all. There's nothing wrong with loving your grandpa. It's fine. A distrust of the mother of the queen. Results of the research C-103 and then I'm going to treat about Shirakawa Park. Shirakawa Park. Satoshi Hojo must not be allowed to visit his sister. No. A bat to beat her to death is required. EDA's background. Kyosuke EDA's reminiscent. Okay, we can probably get that one. Inspection prior to the collection of service by the fluid. Prior consent. Okay. Okay, I think we've got a run here of things we can do. Completion of the medicine. The death of the construction site made it. Oh, we can do this one too. So like we got like 1, 2, 3, 4 more we can do here. Probably depression of the Shinto priest. Satoshi Hojo's part-time job. Preview, new win, meal Sonozaki. Strawberry milk candy is required. I'm looking for something. An accident at Shirakawa Park. Satoshi Hojo must not be allowed to visit his sister at the clinic. Satoshi Hojo says the responsibility of his brother is required. So, okay. I think we can go ahead and knock out a bunch of these. So, Kyosuke Idio's Reminiscence is required. Boom. I've wanted to become a doctor ever since I was little. Doctors make a lot of money. People look up to doctors. I think those are the kind of reasons I had. So when I played with my friends, I always acted like a doctor. I cleaned their wounds and applied ice packs to my friends who sprained their ankles, using what I learned from my household medical books. Everyone, including me, believed that I'd be a doctor one day. My family was poor, so they praised me for that goal. They told me that I needed to study a lot to become a doctor, so they borrowed some pseudo-medical books from the local library for me. The rental fees weren't cheap, so I would speed read one book in a day, and then the next day my parents would go back to the store and exchange it for a different book, saying they accidentally borrowed a book that they already borrowed before. By doing so, my parents borrowed 2 books for the price of 1. Of course, now I know that those books are rather useless, but they were highly motivational just the same. My neighbors called me Dr. Kyosuke-kun, and I was always picked for class health officer at school. Even my teachers helped me with the classes I needed to take to become a doctor. Of course, in reality, becoming a doctor isn't as easy as it might seem. I had to study diligently, and the path was most definitely rough. To become a doctor, one must attend college. Since my family was poor, I was told I wasn't allowed to go to an expensive private school, so I had to be admitted to a national public university. My grades weren't bad, but the admission rate to national public universities is very marginal. Especially since I wanted to go to a medical school, my chances were even smaller. I studied like crazy. My only driving force was my childhood dream of becoming a doctor. The dream of becoming a doctor, to be looked up by everyone, kept me going. And I was admitted. I wasn't at the top of the list, but I made it in. I was finally at the starting point of making my childhood dream come true. My parents were thrilled. Neither my father nor my mother went to college, so they were proud of their son getting into a public medical school. They invited our relatives over to celebrate. Although it was a public university, tuition wasn't cheap, but they still had an extravagant celebration anyway. My father didn't express his emotions much. He always kept a straight face. He rarely voiced his opinion or took initiative on anything. My mother took care of everything, and he showed up last and left without saying a word. He was the typical stern and silent Japanese father of the time. That's why I was surprised to see him shedding tears of joy, and I cried along with him. He went around to all my relatives while repeatedly slapping my back, saying how proud and lucky he was to have a son like me. He bragged about my achievements to all who would hear them. The celebration became my farewell party as I was about to leave for Tokyo. My father yelled "Bonsai!" repeatedly at the station as the train pulled away. I was a little embarrassed, but I could no longer see my father. I could clearly recall the tears pouring down. The days of hellish studying and exams began after that. Some days I was tempted to just give up and submit myself to the lavish lifestyle in the city, but the letters from my family always encouraged me and gave me the strength to go on. My dream then was to open up my own clinic in my hometown so I could contribute to the region. Why does nobody say about? I mean, I think they do in Japan. I don't think that that's really changed. It seems like something that I still see characterized, at least on TV and dramas and movies and stuff, so I think they probably still do. I never even dreamed of getting involved with brains. One day I noticed a difference in a letter from my family. The letter said the usual things about how it was at home and asked how I was doing, but the postscript was what caught my attention. Your father has become really violent lately. Sometimes he turns the house upside down and I don't know what to do. I just couldn't picture him acting viciously. I was extremely surprised. Did something happen? But in the postscript my mother said that there was nothing she could think of. My mother and father had been together for a long time. They'd been together since well before I was born, so she noticed things that I couldn't. She couldn't even think of a reason why my father had become so violent. What happened? They got along so well. They were such a lovely couple. When I caused a problem for my mother when I was little, my father only bonked my head with his knuckle. Why was he acting this way towards my mother? Maybe there was some kind of misunderstanding between them. I was going home for the new year. Maybe I could have a good talk with him then. But the situation was a lot more serious than I thought. On one cold winter day, I found my apartment door unlocked. I thought someone had broke in, but I found my mother in my apartment with her luggage. That's right, my mother could no longer take my father's fury and came to stay with me. That was back when people still believed in the proverb, a woman has no place to settle down all her life. She couldn't go back to her own family because they lived in the same region as my father's, so she came all the way to Tokyo. I heard my father's violence from my mother's own lips. She cried, saying she had no idea why such a quiet man changed like that. She said she wasn't ever going back to him. I didn't know what to do. I asked if she could talk to him one more time, but the bruises on her body told me it was no use. To remember what happened afterwards is too much, so I'll be brief. After my mother left, my father thought she was having an affair and went over to the neighbor's house with a wooden sword. He was arrested. He was released immediately, but he assumed someone in the neighborhood was hiding her, so he did the same thing repeatedly. He eventually reached the point of getting into fights with anyone he saw. In the end, he picked a fight with some young punks and ended up being beaten to death. My relatives gave my father a decent funeral, but my mother didn't attend. It was no use beating a dead horse. So nobody said anything negative about my father, but everyone was simply puzzled as to why he changed so much. When I heard from my relatives, my father's final days were a lot stranger than what I heard from my mother. My mother only told me about his sudden rage and violence, but my relatives told me he also laughed and grew sad. Apparently, he displayed several sudden fluctuations of emotion, especially in his last years. They also told me that he started to complain about headaches after an accident he had. My father was a construction worker. He had hit his head hard on a construction board during an accident at work. He regained his consciousness quickly and seemed fine, but since the accident, he started to have headaches and behave abnormally. I sensed a connection between the accident and my father's changes, so I talked to my professor after I went back to Tokyo. Oh, good. Good. We're dropping frames. There go the frames. There they go. There they go. We can do it. Come on. No, we can't. We disconnected entirely. I think we got it. I think we got it. Not sure why that happened, but it happened at the same time last night, so it looks like our frame problem is back, which is awesome. It turns out having frame issues it's perfect when you're streaming narrative-focused games. So, good thing that's happening. All right, but we switched servers. Should be good. Everybody back? We all good? Fantastic. All right.
断言はできませんが、その様子から入江君のお父さんに何らかの異常が起こっていた可能性は否めません。その事故の際に脳が傷つき、精神的な変化を起こしたのかもしれませんね。お父さんの晩年の言動からは、そんな患者さんに多く見られるいくつかの症状が伺えます。
Human behavior is created by the brain, and if the brain is damaged, it can cause erratic behavior. In other words, my father wasn't crazy, he was suffering from a
お父さん
disorder.
の遺体を検視できるなら、脳をよく調べてみるといいでしょう。ひょっとすると腫瘍のようなものが見つかるかもしれません。
My father had already been cremated, so there was no way of knowing. But hearing about his behavior, I knew for sure that was the only way to explain why such a quiet and gentle man would change. I tried to explain all this to my relatives to regain my father's honor, but hardly anyone understood. If his brain was damaged, he would have been dead. But he was alive and well, so the accident didn't change his brain. It wasn't his brain that caused him to change, it was his mind. They simply brushed it off like that. This is the perception most people have about the brain. They don't realize the mind and the brain are connected. Most of the relatives didn't believe me, but there was one person who I really wanted to anyway. That was my mother. As she got older, she grew senile and she exaggerated the abuse she had to endure. All she did was criticize my father, and every time she ended up crying, lamenting that she married him. They were a lovely couple. They were a great family. That's why I wanted to convey to her that she was misunderstanding the situation with my father. My father's behavior was caused by his brain damage. What he did to her was very sad, but he didn't want to be that way. I told her that it wasn't his fault. But my mother didn't understand. Before she took her last breaths, I begged her to forgive my father, but her final words were, "Please don't bury me next to that man."
Ooh! Ow! Man!
My father wasn't at fault. He was simply the victim of a brain disorder. You don't complain to a person who's coughing because he has a cold, because coughing is just a symptom and he should be sympathized with. In my father's case, the symptoms weren't as obvious as a cough. They took the form of changes in personality, which are much harder to recognize. If I had studied the brain more, I could have explained it better to my mother so that she could have understood him. Then they could have been a nice couple again in heaven. When I realized that, I cried. And I also realized that there are plenty of people like my father in this world who are suffering from a disorder, yet they are misunderstood and despised for it. And then I found out about a miraculous cure for such disorders called a lobotomy. Ever since that day, I spent my days learning about the brain so I could help people who are suffering from mental illnesses. My father is gone, but he was still alive. I could cure him myself, so he and my mother could reconcile. That's the main reason why I'm here.
Oof, man, that's rough. Ugh.
Not agreeing with the guy here. I don't want that to be mistaken. It's just, oof, that's rough. Okay, so that was EDA's background. Make some notes. We got that. So, routine inspection. We got that. Cozy, sensor. Okay, wait. I want to check something. Hold on. Okay. The Toko Hojo's detailed test results is required. Yosuke EDA's decision is required. But I think we'll go ahead and keep going down this path here, because we can open up a lot on page 3. So, a routine inspection. Prior consent for the collection of cerebrospinal fluid is required. The lights came on in the meeting room as the sideshow ended, and all the auditors began to applaud, praising the EDA institution's dramatic accomplishments.
実に素晴らしい。本音を言わせてもらえば、私はこのひなみ沢症候群の研究はあまり期待していませんでした。仮に進むとしても、10年単位で3歩進んで2歩下がるような研究になると思っていました。
いやいや、それが短期間の間にこれだけの成果を上げられるとは。入江所長の努力と指導の賜物です。
そんなことはありません。私を支えてくださる優秀なスタッフとそちらの高野さんのおかげです。
ご謙遜をやはり脳に関しては入江所長は天才ですわ。何しろ脳に関しては誰も及ばない実績をお持ちなのですから。
そうですな。あなたと同じ年の医者であなたほど大勢の脳みそをご覧になってきた方はおりますまい。
おめでとうございます、入江兄さん。私もこれで東京に胸を張って報告に帰れます。
富武さんに良いお土産が持たせられて光栄です。あとニサというのはご勘弁を。どうしても馴染めませんので。というかリサさんって聞こえるんですよね。
まるで女性の名前みたいに聞こえますね。
でも二郎さんも影の立役者ですわね。なかなか成果の出せない私たちの予算を 二郎さんが懸命に努力して維持してくださったおかげですわ。
いやでも今回の成果は劇的です。ひなみ沢症候群の病原体を特定し、今後の研究計画に具体的道筋をつけることができました。以後の進捗監査がとても楽しみになります。
I'm sure the Tokyo office will quit bothering us about cutting your budget with these sorts of results.
何しろ皆さんにお出ししている缶コーヒーの予算まで削られそうになったんですも
Oh
のね。
no! Somebody think of the canned coffee budget!
富武君、東京にしっかり報告して祝杯が挙げられるくらいの予算はつけるよう愚信してあげなさい。
無知ばっかりではいかんね。飴もないとね。
その飴は予算で還元していただけると一番嬉しいのですが。
And when that congenial atmosphere, our routine audit was over. Irie was surrounded and being questioned by National Institute of Infectious Diseases workers who had joined the auditors.
高野さん、おめでとう。みんなの前では言えないけれど、今日の成果は全て高野さんの積み重ねによるものだよ。
ありがとう、二郎さん。
Jiro-san and I are the only ones here who know that strings were pulled in order to create the Irie Institute, so only Jiro-san can understand what I had to go through.
でも、これでようやく研究の舞台に立てたというところね。私の挑むべき相手がようやく同じ土俵に上がってくれただけ。正念場はこれからよ。そしてここからが最も楽しいところになりそうだけど。
それでね、今回の件で中川本部長の方からぜひ東京で報告会をしてほしいと伝言をことづかってるんだ。アルファベットの理事会もぜひ君と会合を設けたいって言ってたよ。みんな君に直接話を聞いてみたいようだね。
あらあら、二郎さんを経由した報告じゃ物足りないのかしら。
いやそういう意味じゃないとは思うけどな。きっと噂の美人研究員を直接見てみたいんじゃないかな。
Oh, look at Mr. Smooth Guy making his move.
あら嫌だ、二郎さんったら。
失礼します。高野さんさ、東京からお電話です。
お待たせしました。高野です。
おお、元気にやってるかの。
小泉先生、わざわざお電話をいただけるなんてとても恐縮でございます。
Oh, he's not dead. Okay, okay. We can't do the next fragment after that one then. You find me somebody that wouldn't get lost looking into those big old dopey eyes. She is a woman with very specific wiles.
お祝いを言おうと思って電話したんだ。
ありがとうございます。はい、おかげさまで研究の第一段階であり最大の目標でもあったひなみ沢症候群の病原体特定に成功しました。
そうかそうか、ついにやったな、みおちゃん。天国で高野くんもきっと大喜びしているだろうの。
Nah, this man's just got raw tenacity. When she visited him, he was clearly already getting it on with his serving lady, so... and he tried to grab her ass, too.
まだまだですわ。祖父は、ひなみ沢症候群の病原体特定などという段階を超えて研究していました。人の思想や意志が、実は人以外の寄生的存在によって支配されていた可能性、それを暴いて初めて祖父の研究は偉業と称えられるのです。世界中の思想や宗教が全て寄生虫で説明できたなら世界はひっくり返るくらいの大騒ぎになるでしょうね。
そ れは愉快だの。偉そうに振る舞っとる宗教家連中が単なる寄生虫の親玉に過ぎんと立証されたら、
Especially the erection part, right? You gotta really worry about that.
ぜひそんな愉快なのを見せてくれ。ミオちゃんがそれを見せてくれるまで、私は天国のお迎えを断り続けてるからな。
Spoilers, he probably died until he saw it, before he saw that.
縁起でもありませんわ。でも楽しみにしていてくださいね。きっと世界中があっと驚く発表をしてみせますから。その時に初めて世界中が祖父の偉業を知り、祖父が残した資料を奪い合って読み合うことになるでしょう。そこまで至って私はようやく祖父への恩返しを終えるのです。
You see, this part of her character, like, I'm a sucker. Like, it's like, I get and I admire what she's trying to do here. I just don't agree with the methods.
高野くんが羨ましいの。私はな、金なんかこんなにいらんかった。この半分は捨ててもいい。あんたみたいな自分の志を継いでくれる孫が一人いてくれたらと思うよ。
ありがとうございます。身に余るお言葉です。
あとな、小泉のおじいちゃんからのプレゼントだ。みおちゃん宛てにな、祝杯用のワインを1本送らせた。みおちゃんの家の住所がわからんかったから診療所宛てにしてある。取り寄せに手間がかかってるらしいからちょっと時間がかかるかもしれんが、届いたらみおちゃんの研究を手伝ってくれた人たちを集めてそれを振る舞ってあげなさい。
祝杯用にワインなんて。はてさて、小泉先生からどんな高級ワインが届くやら。
そんな高級酒と違う。みおちゃんも覚えとらんかね。高野くんがいつも一本のワインを大切にしておったの。
I remember. That's right. My grandfather kept a certain bottle of wine. I don't know if he bought it himself or someone gave it to him, but he treasured it, and he always said he'd open it when his research finally gained recognition. I was a child then, so I don't even remember what brand it was, but Mr. Koizumi would know. He went through all the trouble to find the same bottle of wine for this special occasion. For the first time in a while, Takano felt some sunny warmth she experienced during her time with her grandfather.
おじいちゃん。
やっぱりみおちゃんにはそう呼ばれた方がしっくりくるの。どうもみおちゃんに先生と言われても自分のことだと思えなくてな。
I can't help but smile along with him, because I think Tomitake and Irie are just having a similar
そう呼ばれ
exchange.
る方がお好きでしたら、人前以外ではそう呼んでも結構ですわよ。
できれば人前でもそう呼んでもらえると喜ぶんだがの。
I don't know exactly how old he is, but if he can laugh so energetically, he'll live for many more years to come. I guess the saying about living a long life is true after all.
高野くんもみおちゃんのような子が本当の家族だったらと思うよ。本当にな。
My grandfather had his own family, of course, but because he was so into his research, he became estranged from his wife. They were legally married, but they lived separately. I never met his family when I was a child. I only met them after my grandfather committed suicide. Oh. During his latter years, my grandfather went into psychological despair and began to look at his life with cynicism. His condition became worse over time, and he was shocked at his own dementia. He was afraid of living while his consciousness degraded, so he jumped off the rooftop of the hospital. Only my name was in his suicide note. None of his family members' names were in it. That's when all his relatives showed up and took everything my grandfather left behind. They were afraid I was going to get his estate. They had lawyers and all that, so I backed down. I asked for everything in his study in return. Those idiots don't understand the value of my grandfather's research. They were actually happy to strike a deal out of court, and they could also get rid of the piles of papers and jars with human organs in them. They've never even shut up once when he was alive, yet like hyenas, they appeared after his death. I'd never let them put their hands all over my grandfather's research. Fortunately, I was able to protect my grandfather's soul from their tainted hands.
それでは長くなると悪いからこれで切るな。困ったことがあったらいつでもおじいちゃんに頼りなさい。孫娘のためにいくらでも一肌脱ぐからの。
ありがとう小泉のおじいちゃん。ミオはもっともっと頑張りますね。
That one was a routine inspection. The death of Koizumi Sensei is required. Okay, so we can't do that one yet. Okay, I thought we had all of these, but we don't. So, completion of medicine C-117, Rika Furude's high fever. The death of the damn construction site manager is required. So we can do the old guy. And then we'll take like a 5-minute break after this one and come back and do another, I don't know, an hour and 15 or so. Does that sound good to everybody? The death of the damn construction site manager is required. Oh, right! This is Oishi's friend. I don't know what to say. I want to say something, but I can't think of the right words. I can only sigh.
大石さん、探したんすよ。課長から手配写真の。
静かにせい。ここは騒ぐ部屋ではないぞ。
As Kumagai barged into the room, the old coroner quickly snapped back at him.
すみません。ですね。課長が容疑者の手配写真について。
ああ、それ小宮山君に相談してくれませんかね。ちょいと私じい様と話がありまして、すぐに上がりますと上に言っといてください。
わかりました。
Kumagai ran out of the autopsy room with the same haste he entered it.
賑やかな男だの。
おやっさんだったらやかましいって言ってげんこつの一つも食らわしてるところです。
お前さんも少し上に戻った方がいいぞい。ここの空気は慣れんやつには合わん。
そうですね。あんまりサボってると私
獅子骨界隈じゃチンピラも避けて通るお前さんをツモの切り方が悪いとげんこつを食らわせてきたのは後にも先に。
Don't split your tumo wrong, Sayara. You hear me?
容赦のない人だったな。本当の親父よりげんこつもらった気がしますよ。
I will literally punch you if you do.
本当も嘘もないわい。お前さんが本当の親父だと信じてたなら、こいつも。
My real father passed away in Nagoya. He was unlucky. If he wasn't given the order to move to a plant in Nagoya, he would have died in an air raid. If he could have rode it out in another half a year or so, the war would have been over. I was sad, of course, but I was grown up enough by then that I didn't cry on the ground like my mother did. But people feel sadness in different ways. For some people, it comes all at once in an overwhelming wave. For others, feel sadness gradually over a long period of time. I think I was the latter. When he was alive, I only thought of him as annoying. In my mind, I even cursed him with questions about why he'd avoided the draft, and I thought my feelings toward him would always be the same. Then the war ended. As I saw families and friends being reunited with joy as they came home from the front, it finally happened. I grieved for my father's death. Japan was filled with people who were sad and full of despair. I knew I wasn't the only one whose life ended up that way, but I remember I was very, very heartbroken. After the war, the nation completely changed. As a policeman, the environment I worked in went through sudden changes too. In order to forget my sorrow, the only thing I could do was devote myself to my work.
私はいろんな取り締まりをやらされてましたね。食料とか生活必需品を非合法な手段で買い込む人たちをよく検挙したもんです。そりゃあもうゾロゾロ引っかかりましたっけ。 小倉のあたりは物が豊かで、そういった物を手に入れるのにかなり都合が良かったそうなんですよ。
After the war, Japan faced a chronic shortage in food supply. To those ends, the nation instituted a food rationing program by signing the Food Control Act, but the rations the government provided weren't even close to being enough to feed families. Therefore, people had no choice other than buying food and supplies from the black market. The government hardly had enough food for rations, but there was somehow plenty on the black market. The dealers there sold it at outrageous prices, and some of them became quite wealthy. The Sonozaki family made their money through the black market, but that's another story. The government didn't bother arresting those dealers, for with their money they were able to buy off the top members of the police department. Instead, they decided to go after the people buying the goods, and even confiscated the rice they brought by selling everything they owned. Yeah, I remember that. Wasn't there a prosecutor who starved himself to death? Yeah, there was. The prosecutor who vowed not to eat illegal rice starved to death. Wasn't it in 1947? That was horrible. He, a public prosecutor, proved it himself that people survived by adhering to the law. That prosecutor had grown tired of the government charging people with doing whatever they could to survive, and he proclaimed that he was never going to buy black market rice again. In 1947, he starved to death when he was only in his mid-30s. The law prohibited people from buying black market rice, but that was the only way to survive. In that case, was the Food Control Act a bad law itself? The death of the prosecutor was seen as a desperate message to the government about the injustice of the law. We rounded up people in bags of rice and lined them up at a temporary inspection point near the station. It was like a military tribunal. We inspected their bags and confiscated everything that they brought from the black market. They sold everything they owned to buy the rice. They pleaded that if we confiscated the rice, how would they feed their starving children? Yet they forbade you from going after the sellers, so it was absolutely unfair in the view of the people. Everyone was on edge, so they heard the police inspection was set up, and at the next station they'd jump off the train and run. We were aware of those people, so we set up several officers near jump-off spots in order to capture them. I remember chasing after women carrying several kilos of rice on them. This was the first time I met the old man.
私の親父にね、あまりにもそっくりだったんですよ。私はね、てっきり死んだと思っていた親父が帰ってきてくれたんじゃないかなって本気で思いましたよ。
I was chasing a man who was running away from the inspection point. There was no way for him to run with a heavy bag of rice on him, so either he'd get arrested with the illegal rice or escape by ditching the rice that he bought by selling all of his belongings. In other words, if a person is being chased by the police, that person can't provide his family and rice to eat. Of course, I felt guilty about that. I knew people had to buy rice to survive, so we had a tacit agreement to let those who ditched the rice and ran get away. So I always thought the same thing when I chased them. Please throw it away. I didn't want to catch him because I didn't want to hear him crying and pleading in distress. It was then that the old man showed up. He looked exactly like my dead father. I was dumbfounded. Then, all of a sudden, he punched me in the head. If a father disciplines you as a child, you lower your head in apology. I was so happy to see my father alive that I couldn't just hold my joy in. The old man said, "Let him go." Then I heard his voice. I realized he wasn't my father, so I thought I'd arrest him for assaulting a policeman. But a young man like me, who'd barely grown any hairs yet, was no match for an older man used to fighting.
いや、たっぷり説教をもらいましたよ。大通りの真ん中でぶちのめされた挙句に。普通に考えたらそんなのに耳なんか傾けないですよね。でもあの時の私はどうかしてたんです。どうしてもおやっさんが親父に見えちゃって、おとなしく言うことに耳を傾けることしかできなかったんです。
まあそこで小づいただけじゃなく、男の器量もきっちりと見せられたのがこいつの大したところだったの。今時じゃすっかり珍しくなっちまった。古き良き時代の生き残りじゃった。
Despite my age, I still needed a father. I needed someone to look up to show me what makes a man a man. When I think about it, I really did have two fathers. The old man was a father, a brother, and my best friend. But now here he lies with his head, body, and arms and legs all dismembered, and his right arm hasn't been found. He taught me how to be a man, how to enjoy alcohol, how to play mahjong. And with that right arm, he gave me a good beating when I did something wrong. But that right arm is still missing.
ねえ、もちろんついています。おやつさんの右腕ももちろん取り返しますし、この金もきっちり返します。
They're running Hinamizawa from the shadows and inciting this collective crime they call the damn protests. The Sonozaki family. I declare war within myself. I already know who my enemy is. And that's how that little vendetta got started. Okay. So, we'll drop a save here, and we'll be back in like 2 or 3 minutes. And we'll burn through, like, I don't know, another hour or so, give or take. Somewhere around there. So get up, stretch out a bit. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Biology's stupid. Biology is stupid, and it's for stupid people. Who are stupid. Yeah, down with biology. I just, man. Did you guys see how I just owned biology? It's never coming back from this. Biology will never be the same again. It's over and done with, son. I'll wait like another minute or so. What's better than biology? The Marco Polo. No, no, no. No! Alright. I think we're good to get things going again. You made progress in Higurashi. In Higurashi. Good job. Good job. Proud of you. You're doing the Lord's work. Alright. Let's see. Completion. Rika Furude. Okay. So, bottle of wine for a toast. Don't have that. And I don't. Okay, wait, we might have all that? I'm not sure. You're right. Okay. Hojo's awareness of his sins. A conflict between the Hojo family and the Sonozaki family is required. I don't think we got that. I think we definitely got that. So... let's see. Satoko Hojo's detailed test result. Kyosuke Idio's decision. I think we can do C103. Satoshi Hojo must not be allowed to visit the system. Okay, so let's check out C103. Okay, good. Okay. The death of Satoko Izan is always required. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But also, multiple apologies are required as well. Plans for Satoko-chan's dissection are moving right along. Well, that's not what we wanted to see! I don't want Satoshi-kun to be sad. I feel pity for Satoko-chan and her harsh circumstances. I'm still struggling with how much I have to sacrifice for the sake of research.
Eh?
I wasn't thinking about cutting open your best friend's head while she's alive and keeping her alive for months so I can do research, Rika. I can promise you that. He keeps calling her San, and they keep writing Chan, and it's driving me nuts. Rika-chan is on our side. There's nothing I have to hide from her. Actually, I probably shouldn't keep anything from her. Oh, well, Jay.
両親との不仲とその両親の突然の死。彼女の心にはそれは一度に受け入れるにはあまりに大きすぎる出来事でした。それが引き金になったのかもしれません。
検査の結果は
The test results! Okay, we can probably mark this off as test results.
Level 5です。
Oh, that's bad!
上辺は非常に安定して見えますが、情緒は非常に不安定です。先日から
I have to imagine the truth of those deaths is going to be somewhere in these fragments. I don't think they can let that hang.
サトシに聞きましたです。 里子の心の傷がなかなか癒えないと気にしていましたです。入江、里子はどうなるのですか？
Satoko-chan is Rika-chan's best friend. How can I tell her that we're planning to dissect Satoko-chan? However, even if I don't say anything, she already knows that Satoko-chan's situation is extremely poor.
入江は僕の体を調べてたくさんのことが分かったのではないですか？
ええ、それはもちろん症状を抑える効果が期待される試薬も現在いろいろと試しているところです。
それを里子に与えることはできませんのですか？
一度は考えました。しかしかなり危険です。体力や精神力に余裕がある検体に試し、少しずつデータを集めていこうという段階です。里子ちゃんのようなもう後がない人間に試せるような代物ではありません。
では入江、その薬を試さないなら里子はどうなってしまうのですか？
She spoke as if aware of our plans for Satoko-chan. No, she must actually know. I've told her about most of my research. She's more mature than she looks, so it'd be easy for her to figure it out.
僕は里子が 1% でも助かる可能性があるならそれにかけるべきだと思いますです。
非常に危険な賭けです。最悪の場合、彼女は即座に末期発症し錯乱するか、さもなければ人としての心を失い、一生を焦点の合わない目で壁を見て過ごす体になってしまうかもしれない。
It's my favorite part of streaming. It's the best part of streaming is things like this happening. Like, we had this solved for a couple weeks and now it's back. It's literally the same problem as last time. Anyway, we should be back. Hooray.
どちらもそれはあまりに過酷な運命です。
全身麻酔で痛みを感じさせずに 眠ったま
Deep
まを
voice
殺す方
Rika.
がずっといいというの。
She's being very serious now.
入江、よく高野が言う通り、医学に 100% はない。でもこのまま放置すれば里子を待ち受ける運命は 100% の絶対の死しかない。ならばどちらにかけるかは明白なはず。
そうですね。その通りです。
But I know too well, C103, the medicine that's being tested, may not even be something that can be used. It may not even have a 1% chance of success. Worse, I can't even imagine what kind of tragic end she'd meet if her body rejects the medicine. That's why I'm tempted to believe it would be far more merciful to feed her her favorite food, let her gently fall asleep, and after that, dissect her while she dreams. I don't want to admit it, but Takano-san is right. I'm being indecisive and showing a lack of resolve. How effective could the medicine made by someone like that really be? So because it was a medicine I created myself, I couldn't even believe there was a 0.1% chance of success.
僕は入江の作った薬なら信用できると思いますです。
She spoke as if she had read my mind. Surprised, I raised my head to look at her, and found her giving me a reassuring look I never would have imagined someone her age capable of.
入江は 人の命を左右するとても辛い仕事に耐えている。本来人の生き死になど人間がどうにかしようというのがおこがましいこと。その重圧は背負った者にしかわからない。
Her voice hasn't changed, but I feel like Rika-chan is admonishing me, almost as if she knows what it's like to be responsible for human lives.
その重さは罪の意識と後悔の重さを加えて決められる。だから入江はまだまだ危険な薬を聡子に試せない。そうでしょう。
Takada-san said the same thing when she criticized me earlier. I'm being criticized again.
でもだからあなたになら聡子を託せると思う。人の命はとても重い。その重みに耐えかねるのはあなたが人の命を大切にしたい心があるからこそよ。そんな心がなくしてどうして人を病気から救えるというの？高野みたいに人をモルモットとしか思ってないやつの治療薬なんか試せると思う？
I shouldn't have laughed, but I couldn't help it. I feel like I should laugh.
高野とあなたがそれぞれに薬を差し出したなら私は入江の薬の方が治るように思う。
Yeah, it happened last night as well. So it's something, there's something fucked up with my ISP that happens at this time of night specifically. It stopped for a couple of weeks, but now it's back for some reason, so I'm not sure what's going on.
だって薬は人の心から生み出されるんだもの。自分の身から滴り落ちる雫で人を救いたいという気持ちが人の病を癒してくれる。
おっしゃる通りです。医者が薬のことで諭されるとは。
私は自分の体を他でもない聡子のために差し出した。私の体から注射針で抜き出したものは全て私から聡子に捧げる薬の雫。その雫から命の本当の重さを知り、日々後悔と自責を忘れないあなたが何かを抽出してくれたなら、それが聡子に効かないわけがない。
Do shrine maidens take confessions? If they do, she's doing a great job of being a shrine maiden at this age.
賭けになります。聡子ちゃんが果たして受け入れてくれるかどうか。
聡子に伝える必要はありません。
Whoa! Rika, Jesus.
聡子にとってひなみ沢症候群を知ることは心の深い傷をもう一度えぐることにしかならないのだから。
What did she mean by those words? When I realized it later, I was surprised how thoughtful and perceptive she
解剖
was.
計画を中止させましょう。北条聡子に対する C103 投与実験に変更します。せめて 1% でもうまくいく確率が上がるように努力します。
大丈夫ですよ。絶対にうまくいきます
です。そんな楽観してはいけません。
大丈夫なのです。もう決まってることなのですから。これは古出神社の巫女様の心強いお告げです。ファイトオンなのですよ。
Doesn't that just lift your little spirits? Doesn't that just perk your little heart up? Gosh darn it. Okay, H170, the discontinuation of Sotoki Hojo's dissection. Okay, Kyosuke Idie's motive to become... Alright, we can find out if it worked. H170. C103's implementation on Satoko is going well so far. It wouldn't make any difference to me if the experiment failed. However, Irie's extraordinary focus and attention to the experiment has avoided Satoko Hojo hallucinating or turning into a vegetable during the experiment, and surprisingly, we see prospects of her returning to normal life despite reaching level 5. C-103 still has many issues, but this experiment proved that even a person who reaches level 5 can be cured. I didn't believe in it at first, but I guess I have to acknowledge Irie's hard work. Only Irie could have done this. He was tormented by naive humanism and didn't want to make mistakes, and this is why he felt obligated to cure Satoko Hojo. The reason why I dislike Irie is because of his the reason why I dislike isn't because of his achievements or abilities, but because of that weakness. But this time I had to praise him for it.
入江所長のレポートを拝見しましたわ。脱帽と言わざるを得ません。
いえ、私の研究者としての職務を果たしたに過ぎません。その結果、医者としての職務も果たせたなら、私にとってはそれに勝ることはありません。
今やさとこちゃんは私たちにとって最も重要な検体になったと言っても過言ではないでしょう。
Hooray! Satoko's finally important! Woo!
何しろレベル5に至りながら生還した初めての人間なのですから。
その通りです。彼女を社会生活に復帰させ、経過を見ながら長期観察に切り替えていきます。彼女には毎週日曜日にこちらに来てもらって検査を受けてもらえるよう話をするつもりです。
しかし C103 を日に3回も注射する義務と毎週日曜日に検査に訪れる義務を彼女にどう説明されるおつもり？
People trust me.
彼女には何の病気の自覚もないのに。
そこは今うまく納得してもらえる話を考えています。今考えているのは私の研究論文に協力してもらうというものです。栄養剤の注射を毎日してもらい、毎週日曜日にその効果を検査する。その代わりに研究協力費としていくらかを支払うという感じです。
I guess Irie is determined to cure Satoko Hojo no matter what. He seems determined to keep her off the dissection table. He and I are in different positions, but I don't have any complaints about his naive ideals so long as they translate directly into passion for our research. If his plans can be put into effect and produce a different result than the dissection would, then they'll still be useful in the overall understanding of Hinamizawa syndrome. I have nothing against Satoko Hojo. It's only that I see her as a research specimen. If she can be useful in that capacity without being dissected, that's perfectly fine with me.
日に3回もの注射となれば、これは本人だけでなく、保護者の方の同意も不可欠です。確か、ご両親が亡くなってからは、おじ夫婦に親権が移っていましたね。そちらに一度相談に伺おうと思います。メイへの怪しげな研究協力を承諾してもらえればいいのです。
This is going to go real well, I imagine.
大丈夫ですわよ。そのための研究協力費ですもの。月に10万か20万も振り込んでやれば。
That is a lot of 1980. That is a lot of 1980s money.
それだけの予算はありますか？
もちろん、次郎さんを納得させる資料を作りさえすれば。
わかりました。それは私が作ります。あと、さとこちゃんに振動をかけないよう指導しておく必要もあります。
They are practically throwing Satoko like a football to the clinic, dancing around the table saying, "It's time to make some crazy money."
レベル5をぶり返すことになったら大変ですからね。噂では、
Think of all the soy sauce they can buy.
とても現金な方だとか。金銭で丸め込むのは可能かもしれません。それらの指導も私の方できっちり行うつもりです。
I've heard Satoko-chan isn't getting along with her aunt and uncle. I never thought that that'd affect us in any way, but now Irie has to deal with them. Maybe he's developed some kind of sense of responsibility or duty as her guardian. I don't really care. The more responsible he feels, the more progress our research makes. That'll be a plus for me.
それはそうと H17 番台についてのレポートを拝見しました。
ええ、入江所長の成果に比べれば足元にも及びませんが、一応の研究成果を出せましたわ。
本当に皮肉ですね。彼女を錯乱から救う治療薬を作っていた研究所で、その傍らでは彼女を直ちに錯乱させる危険な薬が作られていたのですから。
Irie wasn't involved in the H170 research. That was my work. In fact, even if I asked him, he wouldn't have agreed to be involved. This dangerous reagent was developed during the process of uncovering the mechanisms behind how the pathogens controlling Satoko Hojo's brain could induce derangement and/or paranoia in the host. To put it bluntly, injecting H170 into a patient with Hinamizawa syndrome forced them to express terminal symptoms. It threw the brain into a simulated state of agitation, intentionally forcing the pathogen to grow unstable. If we continue researching this, it will be possible to drive anyone with Hinamizawa syndrome violently insane at any time. Studying the mechanism behind that will help to solve the syndrome's mysteries, so this study on H170 will be extremely important in future research. Also, this medicine has military applications as the client requested. At this point, there's absolutely no use for it. But once our research progresses a bit further, this H170 could be spread to at the right moment to cause a certain type of reaction. Compared to a killer virus, it seems like a useless pathogen, but there's no way to detect it in a dead body, and it makes it look as though the person just went insane spontaneously, so it must have some useful applications. The Marco Polo Bridge incident. The Marco Polo Bridge incident! Let's hear it for our homie, the Marco Polo Bridge incident, ladies and gentlemen. The Marco Polo Bridge incident has logged on. The Marco Polo Bridge incident threatened to end our research on Hinamizawa syndrome before. A historically important incident that is like that couldn't have been created by a killer virus. But it's possible with Hinamizawa syndrome. The Elders of the Alphabet Project, the sponsor of our research, can think whatever they want to about that. I don't care how they use what I've learned. My purpose is to solve the mysteries of Hinamizawa syndrome and to make people realize how important this research is. Also, to make people acknowledge my grandfather's accomplishments and achievements. Any military applications were just a byproduct of the process that I didn't care about.
クライアントにとっては高野さんの成果の方が喜ばれるでしょう。
You have gifted a sub to the Marco Polo Bridge incident!
来期の予算取りが楽になるかもしれませんね。
情熱だけでは研究は続けられませんものね。先立つものがなければ。
これだけの潤沢な資金を提供してくださるスポンサーさんには頭が上がりません。これだけのお金が公費から出ているのですから。
日本という国は私たちが想像しているよりずっと豊かなのかもしれませんね。公費は公費でも表に出せない黒い公費でしょうけれどね。
Irie has no idea what I had to go through to get that money. Anyway, our research is going extremely well. We don't know what we'll find out about Hinamizawa syndrome, but I'm sure every mystery will eventually be solved. I can hardly wait. What the syndrome indicates is that humans are simply empty containers, and what we believe to be our will is simply the actions of parasites that live in our brains. If that mystery was solved, it would have a greater impact than anything else on our history. That is a truth which nobody wants to believe. This is an achievement my grandfather predicted back during his time. Ah, I know now. I know the reason why my grandfather was so fascinated by this work. I don't think that there is a Twitch user by the name of Marco Polo Bridge Incident. As awesome as that would be, I don't think that's the case. Okay, red capsule, third sacrifice, fourth sacrifice. Satoshi did this. This is the possibility. Results. The truth about Shiroko. Okay. I need this. I need that. C117. Okay, I think a conflict between... I think we can do that. Someone has the Twitch name of the gangster in Eternal Champions. Oh, what the fuck is his name? Ah, shit. No, Larson. Larson Tyler. Right. Yeah, okay, Larson Tyler. Yeah. Okay, so... That's not done, that's not done, that's not done. 7 required. C103 and H107. The truth about the Shirakawa Park incident. Shirakawa Park. I don't know, like we did... Satoshi Hojo must not be allowed to visit his sister at the clinic. Satoshi Hojo's sense of responsibility as a big brother is required. Death of Koizumi, Rika Furude's high fever, Jiro Tomatake's slight fever. Completion of medicine C117. C103, H170. We don't have 117 though. Right? We don't have 117. Okay. War of the Sonozakis. Yeah, I think it's this one. It's just Rika Furude. I ran into Satoko while on my way to the grocery store for my mother. Satoko said she was going there too, so we decided to go together. After exchanging our shopping lists, it became easy to guess what the other family would be having for dinner. Satoko's family is having grilled fish and cooked vegetables. We're having Salisbury steak.
あら、ハンバーグとは羨ましいですわね。私、魚はともかく煮物というのがちょっと怖いんですのよ。先日買ったかぼちゃがまだだいぶ残ってるみたいなんですもの。きっと今夜もかぼちゃの煮物三昧なのです。かわいそなのです。
Hamburger. It's hamburger.
あらかじめかぼちゃが出てくると分かっているのも憂鬱でございますわね。はあ。突然かぼちゃを出されても怒るくせに贅沢な聡子なのです。リカにだって少しは嫌いな食べ物があるはずですわよ。そういえばリカ、大福とかシュークリームとか甘いものが嫌いだったんではございませんこと？別に嫌いではないのです。意地悪で食べないだけなのですよ。食べる気なら何個でも食べられちゃいますのです。パンプキンパイだって美味しくいただけますのですよ。ミパー。リカだけ好き嫌いがないなんてずるいですわ。
Conversations like this are how I have fun. Satoko is my best friend. I usually don't like grocery shopping, but if I'm with Satoko, I can make it an enjoyable evening stroll. Near the supermarket, there are grocers with shops forming a little shopping district. The grocery store is busy this time of day. All the housewives in Hinamizawa gather here to shop. Since Satoko and I have different things to buy, we decided to do our shopping separately.
ミパー、僕はお買い物ができる偉い子なのです。
そうかそうか、リカちゃまは偉いな。ほら、偉い子のご褒美にこれをあげよう。
There were several candies, and the owner of the occasional asthma attack inside a sieve full of a chain. Man, I'm having a stroke. There were several candies for the owner's occasional asthma attack inside a sieve full of change hanging on the front. Thank you. There we go. He picked out a sweet from there and gave it to me. It was my favorite flavor, strawberry milk. I put it in my pocket so I can brag about it to Satoko later. I got a lot of fun out of teasing Satoko and making her jealous. She always overreacts, so I never get bored when I'm with her. Yep, strawberry milk candy is now a thing that we can look at. I enjoyed that conversation while filling my shopping basket. But then I overheard some women whispering. They were talking about something that's a little harsh. They're talking about Satoko. How long do these village traders plan to stay here? They should just leave. They don't even have the guts to go shopping by themselves and make their daughter do it instead. The women went on and on. Ever since the Hojo family and the Sonozaki family got into a huge fight at the explanatory meeting for the dam project, the Hojo family has been ostracized within the village. At first, there was a significant number of families in favor of leaving like the Hojos, but the main branch of the Sonozakis led a push to completely solidify the village's opinion, and as the tone of the unified resistance grew stronger, the pro-evacuation families steadily grew quiet. The public harassment led by the Sonozakis and Kimiyoshis, 2 of the 3 families with powerful influence in the village, also played an effect too. The Sonozaki family made the Hojo family into an example to ensure that there would be no more pro-evacuation supporters. The ancestors of the villagers have lived here for generations, and the villagers also know that they themselves will be buried in this village, so this harassment put a lot of pressure on them. Who was it that agreed to make the Hojo family the leader of the pro-evacuation group at the explanatory meeting? Those same people no longer said anything, and they just joined in on harassing the Hojo family. The harassment they faced then became pressure for the entire village. The Hojo family is hardly wealthy, and they haven't paid the town council fees for a long time. When things were peaceful, nobody said anything about it, but now the wind was blowing a different way, and the Hojo family was asked to pay off all their late council fees immediately. It wasn't an amount that they couldn't afford, but the Hojos recognized a fight was being picked with them, and they responded to it. And so the Hojo family quit the town council. That only played right into the village. The village's evil plans. Making an enemy of the town council meant facing vicious harassment. For example, the place the Hojos dumped their trash was a provisional dumping site established by the town council and a waste management department. Under the council agreement, only council members could use it. Ever since the day the Hojo family quit the village council, their trash bags were returned to the front door. Furthermore, all bags were torn. On top of that, a sign went up on the hedge near the Hojo family. It said, "Private road, no trespassing, only council members permitted." A stubborn old man stood and guarded the road, saying that he would not let any of the Hojo family members pass through. A private road is a private property opened up to the public, so it looks just like a normal road. However, as private property, the owner can forbid anyone else to pass through wherever they like. More and more, the village piled on vicious harassment. The fear of antagonism spread through the entire village, and people became afraid that if they supported the Hojo family, they'd go through the same thing. This has made the Hojo family even more isolated. The grown-ups haven't told their kids about what's going on, so Satoko isn't harassed in any way at school, but it wasn't hard to imagine she probably spent her days feeling so anxious she could barely breathe. Even the women whispering here aren't saying anything directly to Satoko, but it's not like she doesn't notice their mutterings and cold stares. When did this village become so cold towards her? As her best friend, it's very sad for me. Satoko's shopping experience is nothing like mine. When I say hello or buy things, I usually get treats or a discount, but that doesn't happen to Satoko. On the contrary, she's served last on purpose, and sometimes shop owners even pretend they don't hear her. Obviously, people don't want to have anything to do with her. Satoko had been weaving through the housewives crowding the shop, telling the fishmonger what she wanted, but she kept getting ignored. She's decided to keep her smile and pretend she doesn't mind, but I know. It was far too painful for her to endure. At that point, Satoko dropped her coins on the ground. Maybe her finger got stuck on something when she was trying to put the change back in her wallet. I ran through the crowd to help her pick them up, but as I did, I noticed something. Satoko dropped a lot of coins and was struggling to pick them all up, but nobody is helping her. It's not just that, it's almost like they're acting like they don't even see that she's there. Satoko isn't expecting anyone to help her since she's the one who dropped them, but there are so many people around. The reaction is all I needed to tell how hurt she is. Furthermore, when I started to help Satoko, other housewives started to pick the coins up too. It's as if it was a natural thing to do. So they can only help if a shrine maiden of the Furude family does. If I didn't help, they would have disregarded her completely. And the fact that other people helped only because I did hurts Satoko even more. Fucking frames, are you kidding? Ugh. Yep, the frames are going wild tonight. It's fantastic. I grabbed the coins from the housewives without thanking them. I'd rather spit at them than do that. If she didn't thank them, people would talk about that too. Satoko forced out her words of gratitude. The housewives looked down at her with blank expressions. I can't stand this. I can't stand what Satoko is going through right now. I grabbed Satoko's arm and pulled her away. I was frustrated, sad, and bitter. What has Satoko done? Reality is just too cruel. Everyone loves me, but can I share that love with Satoko? Satoko must be wondering why people treat me so differently. I shouldn't come shopping with her, or rather, I should have done her shopping instead. I wanted to at least ease her pain a little bit, so I pulled out the strawberry milk candy I had just received, but Satoko refused to take it. My hand froze. She saw. She saw me getting this candy. Satoko turned her hand to me and kept walking. Without even saying goodbye, she continued on to her house with the shopping bags in her hands. I only wanted to ease her pain, but I ended up rubbing salt in her wound. How can I call myself her best friend? If I could, I would have crushed the candy right there. Oof. Oh man, more sad Satoko times. Oh man. Okay. Strawberry milk candy is required. Fantastic. Okay. A red capsule is required. Okay, so strawberry milk candy is required. We got that. Mion-san, your friend is here. I heard the housekeeper's voice. Our houses in the front yard are huge, so unlike normal businesses, ringing a doorbell or yelling my name repeatedly asking to play won't work. Rika Furude-chama.
来たね来たね。バッチャにリカちゃまが来たって伝えてもらえます？多分あっちの縁側にいると思います。私はスイカを引き上げてきますね。
Oh wow, I didn't realize they were... Oh, I hadn't even thought about them being complementary colors. Granny received many beautiful watermelons from somebody, so she wanted to share. I just called the Furude house a short time ago, and Rika-chan was there to pick one up. Did she come on her bicycle? I can't remember if she has a big enough basket. I pulled the watermelon from the well while thinking about it. The cold water in the well has refrigerated the watermelon, and the condensation makes it look delicious. The 3 members of the Furude family will enjoy it for at least 2 nights. The priest answered the phone, and I thought I had told him to come pick it up. Maybe I wasn't clear enough, or maybe he misunderstood me completely, but she's here to eat the watermelon, not take it home. Besides, the small basket on Rika-chan's bicycle won't hold the watermelon, and it's too dangerous for her to ride while holding it in her hands.
ミオン、お前リカちゃまんちまで超持ってたらな。スイカ片手な自転車なんこがれんて。
みー、僕だってスイカくらい持てますのですよ。
あ、危な危な危な。リカちゃまに何かあったらお社様に申し訳立たんね。うちのミオンが運ぶね。任せたったら。
はいはい、任せられたったら。じゃあついでに神主さんにご挨拶でもしてこようかね。
No matter whether she rides or pushes her bicycle, Rika-chan's hands will be occupied, so I'm going to carry the watermelon. The sky is turning auburn in the sunset, so the cool breeze feels good on my sandaled feet. The plastic bag I'm carrying contains the watermelon, and also some small bags of rock candy. Rock candy! We got rock candy! Alright, that's another one. If her mother finds them, she'll take them away, so we decided to eat them before we got her home. We opened the bags and enjoyed the rock candy. Rika-chan isn't an exception. Whenever kids from our neighborhood come to our house for errands, Granny gives them some treats. Actually, that's a pretty common rule here in Hinamizawa. It's funny, but sometimes when parents aren't watching, siblings will fight over who gets to take the circular notice to the next house over. So these bags of rock candy are like tips for them. Of course, she doesn't normally give out this much. Usually it's just a little piece of it. Granny is being extra nice to Rika-chama.
他の人に悪い気がしますです。
別に気にすることないんじゃない？おだちんは好意みたいなもんなんだもん。変に断るよりは子供らしくありがとうって言って笑顔を見せる方がよっぽどいいと思うけどね。
みーはおだちんをよくもらいますですか？
昔はね。でもさすがにこの年になったらもらわなくなったな。
Give me on treats! Give me on treats! Give me on treats!
今もらうとなんとか子供扱いされてるみたいでかえってカチンとくるかな。なんてね。
僕は子供扱いなので。
いいじゃんいいじゃん。もらえるうちにもらっとけばいい。私くらいになれば欲しくてももらえなくなるんだからさ。
As we talked about ordinary things, I noticed Rika-chan seemed a little sad.
僕はお買い物に行ってもよくおだちんに飴をもらいますが、さとこは一緒に行ってももらえませんです。
I can think of so many reasons why, not only Satoko, but everyone in the Hojo family is being treated poorly in Hinamizawa, and the Sonozaki family are the ones who instigated that. The two damn supporters have died in an accident already. But the malice against the Hojo family is still going. It's directed against Satoko and Satoshi, their children, and the aunt and uncle who were taking care of them. The big fight between the Hojo family and the Sonozaki family at the explanatory meeting started all this. But that was the Hojo couple, and it shouldn't have anything to do with the children and their aunt and uncle. But the idea that the Hojo family are traitors evolved on its own. Therefore, anyone bearing the Hojo name is to be treated poorly. The aunt and uncle weren't dam supporters, so over time the attacks towards them should have stopped. But they're rather odd, and they keep having trouble with their neighbors. They don't follow the community rules, they don't do their community duties, and they spray pesticide while the neighbor's laundry is still hanging outside. So they often get in fights with the other villagers. They'd be hated even without the dam. Therefore, the Hojo family continues to be treated poorly, but none of that should have anything to do with Satoko and Satoshi. Satoko and Satoshi are often depressed at school. I tried to leave the conflict between the two families aside, but I wonder how they really feel about that. From their point of view, I'm just another member of the family that keeps harassing them.
せめて学校にはそんな雰囲気を持ち込ませたくない。だから私はそういう風に振る舞ってるつもりだよ。
それを学校の中だけでなく外にも広げるにはどうしたらいいのですか？
That'd be pretty difficult. The Hojo family made enemies of the three families. They were branded as traitors and is still considered the truth. It wouldn't mean anything if one person suggested an end to the hostilities just because the events around the dam are history now. On the contrary, that would just put them in the same position. Unfortunately for Satoko and Satoshi, the only thing they can do is to wait patiently until the issue withers away. All I can do for them is provide an oasis until that day comes.
では、聡子たちはいつまで耐え忍べばいいのですか？
わかんない。ダム戦争は数年に及んだ。その時に押された烙印を払拭するんだから、それと同じ年数はかかるかもしれないね。
それはつまり、聡子たちが大人になるまで誰にも許してもらえないということですか？聡子が子供のうちはずっと村中から冷たい目で見られていろということですか？
それはあまりにも辛いね。
みー、僕たちは聡子やサトシの仲間なのですよね。
そうだよ。私にとってだって仲間だよ。
なら僕たちの仲間を救うために僕たちに何かできることはないのでしょうか？
私たちに何ができるんだろうね。
Even if the Sonozaki family declares that the dam conflict is over, so the Hojo family are no longer outcasts, that won't solve the problem. It's not that simple. In the first place, Granny hates the Hojo family and won't suffer their name to be mentioned in her presence. It's not a matter of someone forgiving another, it's a matter of very complicated ties between the people in this village. It's absolutely terrifying to have them as your enemies. Everyone knows that very well, and that's why they maintain good relationships with their neighbors. However, if you make enemies out of them, you'll have to face the consequences. That's the unwritten law of the Japanese community, and the Sonozaki family is part of that unwritten law. Now that the Hojo family are outcasts, not even the Sonozaki family can overturn the situation.
南沢のことは、南沢の人間にはどうしようもないということなのでしょうか？
悲しいけど、そういうこともあるかもしれない。もし、聡子を救う人が現れてくれるとしたら、それは村のしがらみにとらわれない、そういう人なんだろうね。でもそんな人村にはいない。
村の外から誰かが助けに来なければ救われないということですか？
Like Rika-chan says, would a knight in shining armor from the village world ever, from outside the village world ever come here? Would that person bring a new wind into this village that has been filled with stale air for hundreds of years? No way. That's just wishful thinking. Time will solve the problem someday. Until then, I have to be their ally. I can't think of anything else I can do for them. As Rika-chan and I crunched our rock candy, we can only pray that people will forgive Satoko and her family sooner rather than later. Rika-chan gently broke the heavy silence.
きっと村の外からしがらみにとらわれない人がやってきます。
そうだね。ダム戦争も終わったんだから、また分譲地に外から人が引っ越してきてくれるといいね。
Yo, lots for sale!
近い年の転校生とか来れば楽しいだろうに。
来ます。きっと。そして彼と力を合わせて私たちは村の悪兵を打ち破るのです。それが私たちの未来を閉ざす3つの錠前に対する最初の鍵。
Mion's standing here right now like, what? Was this candy laced? Did Granny put something extra in this shit? What are you talking about, kid?
え？何それ？なんかの小説？
Rika-chan says some odd things sometimes. When she talks that way, she seems so mature. I even start to doubt she's really younger than I am. The unreasonable antagonism towards the Hojo family. Will there really be someone from the outside who will shatter our old traditions? Red capsule. The 4th year's curse is required. So lots for sale. We got to get to the 4th year. So. Tea set. Okay, tea set on the Vergana. Okay, no, that's not happened yet. I keep thinking. 2 girls playing in a lot. 2 girls playing in a lot. Huh. 2 girls playing in a lot. 2 girls playing in a lot. Begin Satoko's shopping trip. The Shinto priest contracting the EDA institution is required. Depression of a Shinto priest. Roll of 1. Rock candy. Satoko Hojo's detailed test result. Okay. Suffering of a big brother. That's one we can do next. Completion, no. Rika Furude's high fever, no. The death of Koizumi has not happened. Satoshi must not be allowed to visit his sister at the clinic. Satoshi Hojo's sense of responsibility as a big brother is required. An execution order for the 3rd year's curse is required. So we can go back over here. Rock candy as a treat, and Satoko Hojo's detailed test results. A group of boys playing baseball under the powerful sun. The sound of cicadas makes the heat stand out even more. But to those boys, it's just another kind of cheering from the crowds. Of course, they can go through training exercises to build stamina, but the boys don't actually like such routine activities when they look forward to most of the free games after practice. The school in Hinamizawa is actually borrowed from the Forestry Service. The schoolyard is made of gravel, so it's not very appropriate for playing sports on. Compared to that, the grounds at the school in Okinamiya are properly maintained for athletic activities, so the kids grew even more energetic when they come here. Kids from the Hinamizawa really don't care about the ground is made of gravel or not. The other instructor is watching the game, so I decided to go get some drinks for the team.
Kantoku, どこへ行くんですか? 皆さんにジュースを買ってこようと思いまして。もしよかったら、サトシ君も手伝ってくださるととても助かるのですが。はい、お手伝いします。
Satoshi-kun decided to come along with me. Sometimes kids don't like what grown-ups choose, so I'm glad he agreed to help. Satoshi-kun and I got in the car and headed to the grocery store nearby.
監督、サトコの具合はどうなんですか？
経過は良好ですよ。本当にゆっくりとですが、サトコちゃんの心の傷も癒えてきています。もう少しだけ安静にしてあげた方がいいでしょう。
It's natural for Satoshi-kun to be worried. Satoko-chan has been in the hospital for over 2 weeks. Of course, he doesn't know that his sister has Hinamizawa syndrome. Not only that, she's almost at level 5. She could become deranged at any moment. He believes she's depressed because of the shock of her parents' accident. He came to the clinic every day to cheer his sister up. But Satoko-chan has become emotionally unstable and was showing some dangerous symptoms, so he called off the visits. In fact, Satoko-chan is not doing so well. Level 5, the stage Satoko-chan is at, is a very abnormal one. The man from last year, who was at the same stage, was acting so abnormal that even a drug addict in his final stages would have turned and ran. There's no guarantee Satoko-chan won't fall into that same condition. When we performed the autopsy on that man last year, we learned the true identity in the syndrome and gained a great understanding of its mechanisms. We even discovered some important facts that may lead to developments of a cure. However, we have yet to find a method of actually curing the disease. So if Satoko-chan becomes unrecoverable, we may have to dissect her, just like we did the man from last year. So can I tell Satoshi-kun about his sister's situation? All I can do is make vague comments and lie to him that she's been recovering. What if she becomes worse? That would make me an unforgivable liar. The tiny bit of conscience that remains in me hurts.
もし監督の診療所のご迷惑でなければ、もうしばらく入院させてもらった方がいいかもしれません。
それはどういう意味ですか?
I thought he wanted her to come home as soon as possible, so I'm a little surprised.
実はあまり
おばさん一家とも馴染めていないんです。
聡子ちゃんがご両親とあまり良い関係ではなかったと聞いていましたが。
Yep, that's a common Japanese translation thing. Is like for some reason, like they order juice a lot in anime and visual novels, and it gets translated a lot as drinks. And we're dropping more frames. So good. So anyway, that's a thing.
新しく預けられたおばさん夫婦ともなのですか。
聡子は大人にはあまり心を開かないので。
Satoshi-kun told me about their family's background. Their mother's constant remarriages wounded the children deeply. Satoshi-kun was able to overcome it, but Satoko-chan was too young to be able to do that. That left her traumatized, so now she has a tendency to distrust or dislike guardians who aren't related to her. Actually, nobody would be like a guardian who isn't related to them. Actually, nobody would like a guardian who isn't related to them. It's not just Satoko-chan. But usually, people try to deal with that, even if they don't like it. I guess Satoko-chan's not capable of that.
おじさんはあまり家に帰ってこないし、いても寝てるかテレビを見てるかなので、そんなに問題はないんですが、おばさんがものすごく聡子に絡むんです。
どうしてそんなに嫌われてしまったんでしょうね。
I can guess why. Satoko-chan's parents were dam proponents, and because of that, the villagers considered the aunt and uncle part of the Hojo family and ostracized them as such. Moreover, they passed away suddenly in an accident and left 2 children behind, so I guess there would be more hate than gratitude. If she had been obedient like Satoshi-kun, everything would have been fine, but Satoko-chan can't be that way. She shows that in her attitude and expressions, which leads to her and her aunt having big
おばさんに
fights.
聡子の事情を説明してはいるのですが、なかなか分かってもらえなくて。
その度に聡子ちゃんをかばってあげる聡君は、今や聡子ちゃんにとって唯一の肉親は聡君だけなのかもしれませんからね。
そうですね。そんな気がしてます。
Satoshi-kun said with a slight sigh. He doesn't say it, but it seems Satoshi-kun has grown tired of having to cover for Satoko-chan every time she and her aunt fight. He's a good person, as well as a good big brother, so I'm sure he'll do anything to cover for his sister. But that's a very exhausting thing to keep doing forever. Satoshi-kun was already doing that when their parents were alive, and eventually his medical equilibrium couldn't handle the strain. He grew sick, and he visited my clinic. I thought his circumstances might have improved after the initial cause, but his parents were gone. But it seems things were even worse than before.
そんな状況で聡子ちゃんを退院させたら、また心の症状がぶり返してしまうかもしれませんね。入院費のことは気にしないでください。聡子ちゃんが本当の意味で回復するまで、私が責任を持ってお預かりします。
While trying to pretend I'm listening to his request, I feel a little disgusted at myself for making such selfish excuses. I'll make sure. Takano-san is working on her dissection plan as we speak.
お願いできると僕も少しだけ助かります。
はい？
いえ、聡子がもうしばらく入院しててくれたら、僕もその分気が楽だなって。
He needs it. He probably needs this break, unfortunately.
思っただけです。
それはどういう意味ですか？
聡子が帰ってきたら、どうせまたおばと喧嘩をするだろうと思います。そうしたらまた喧嘩や怒鳴り声ばかりの日になって、僕もそれに巻き込まれるのかなって思うと、聡子はずっと入院しててくれるのが一番僕にとって気楽なことなんじゃないかって、そう思ってしまう自分がいて、
This is rough.
嫌になります。
Satoshi-kun is a great big brother who always sticks up for his little sister, but that doesn't mean he doesn't feel
そんなことを
burdened.
考えてしまうなんて、僕はなんて悪い兄なんだろうって思います。そうだと思えば思うほど自分が嫌になって。
Satoshi-kun said, sniffling once. His expression was one of anguish, as if truly feeling his own sin. His desire to be a model big brother is putting himself under greater pressure. I feel bad for Satoko-chan, but I also feel bad for Satoshi-kun in a different way. As someone who knows the both of them well, I feel like that I must be their ally since they don't have anyone else who cares about them. Suffering of a big brother. Damn. Yep, that was a bummer. Let's see. There is one about him recognizing his sin. Satoshi-kun's awareness of his sins is required. The mysterious death of the Furude couple is required. Okay, we can't actually get into the formation of the club yet. So I think now I can actually get into the accident at Shirakawa Park, but I'm going to save just in case. Because I'm a weirdo and I don't want any of the tiles broken. I don't know why, it doesn't affect anything. But I don't want them broken. Alright, let's try it. Alright, we can do it. I think we might go ahead and close on this one too, since we're getting frame drops a little more frequently. So this will probably be the last one we look at tonight. So that is an acceptance at Shirakawa Park. Satoko-chan's dissection plan has been scrubbed, and we are getting ready to administer an almost totally untested medicine, C-103. This experimental medicine suppresses the production of a certain type of hormone, and in doing so, it will stop the transmission of the syndrome triggering Satoko-chan's condition. The mechanism of Hinamizawa syndrome is as follows. The pathogen takes over the frontal lobe of the patient's brain and then induces increased responsiveness to paranoia. As a result, a patient voluntarily carries out excessively defensive behaviors to a problematic extent. If this induction can be cut off, then it'll be possible to save terminal patients from becoming deranged. But it only cuts off an induction, so it's not really a cure. Ironically, the brain is an organ that learns. Once the brain has learned to be excessively paranoid due to the Hinamizawa syndrome, even after the pathogen is eliminated, the brain doesn't simply unlearn that paranoia. In short, even if the pathogen doesn't induce derangement, the patient will be directed to such emotions in their own volition. Thus, it is impossible to completely escape from a nearly deranged level 5 state. The proverb, "a burnt child dreads the fire," is a good example of this. Even after the burn on your tongue heals, the fear of being burned by food again remains. When it ends up being a good thing, we call it learning a lesson, and we call it trauma when it doesn't. We predict Satoko-chan's treatment will take a significantly long time, requiring both medication, such as administering psychotropics, and mental care, like counseling. We have to slowly unravel her mind's solidified paranoia, while also suppressing the symptoms' induction of derangement. This is the treatment plan for terminal patients like Satoko-chan. However, as we're going to stimulate the parts of her brain that affect her emotions while they're being stimulated by the pathogen at the same time, it's possible there could be unexpected side effects. Both her mental and physical strength hold the key to our success. We are going to begin the experiment once she regains her emotional stability and physical strength, but someone who threatens to disturb her emotional stability has been coming here every day. Oishi, the sly old detective from Okinomiya Police Department. He thinks everything, from the dam protests to the dismemberment murder of the construction manager, is an organized effort secretly conducted by the 3 families of the village. He even thinks the accident involving Satoko-chan's parents wasn't an accident. That's why he keeps coming back, so he can talk to Satoko-chan.
何度来られても、聡子ちゃんへの面会を許可することはできません。彼女は両親を亡くしたショックで打ちのめされているんですよ。それを汲み取ることはできませんか？
いやいや、本当にちょっとだけお話が聞ければいいんです。そうお時間を取らせるつもりはないんですがね。令状が必要だってんなら申請しないことはありませんが、そうなるとかなり本格的なことになってしまいますよ。私も北条さんの容体を気遣っているからこそ令状を取るなんて無粋を避けているんじゃありませんか。
令状を取ってまで 一体何を聡子ちゃんに聞こうとしているのか、私にはさっぱりわかりません。
今回の転落、事故ではなく事件。
北条夫妻がダム戦争以来村中から嫌われているという話は知っています。ですがわざわざ旅行先まで追いかけて突き落とすというのは少々突飛すぎはしませんか。
まあ事故でもいいんですがね。ならばどうしてもよくわからない嘘があるんです。どうして嘘が必要なのかって考えるとですね、こりゃ事故ってことはありえないんじゃないかなって思うんです。
嘘とは。
いえね、北条聡子さんの言う事故当時は車で眠っていたっていう話、ちょいと話がおかしいんじゃないかなってそう思うんです。
Satoko-chan claimed she was asleep in the back seat when the accident took place, so she didn't get out of the car at the viewing platform. When she woke up, she didn't see her parents. That's when she found out they had fallen off of the
それ
cliff.
のどこに嘘があるというんです。まさか聡子ちゃんが実は眠っていなくて両親と一緒に展望台へ行ったと、そういう意味ですか。それはどういう意味ですか。
そうです。北条聡子さんは眠ってなんかいなかった。両親と一緒に車を降りて展望台へ行ったんです。
I'm suddenly hit by a terrible possibility. If what Oishi says is true, and Satoko-chan is saying she didn't go to the viewing platform even though she actually did, it's terrible to even imagine.
何を根拠にそうおっしゃっているのかわかりません。それになぜ嘘をつく必要が聡子ちゃんにあるんですか。
それなんですよ。なぜ北条聡子さんは嘘をつかなければならないのか、それの本当のところを教えていただけないと、こいつはただの転落事故ってことでは済ませられないんです。
どうして聡子ちゃんが嘘をついているとお思いなんです。
今回の事故は所轄が違いますので、白川署さんが関係者から事情聴取をしているんですがね、その調書を読んでみるとどうにも引っかかるところがある。
引っかかるところとは何ですか。
北条聡子さんの主張によるならば、彼女は両親に展望台へ行こうと誘われたが、眠たかったのでそれを断り車を降りなかったという。そして彼女はそのまま熟睡してしまい、相当の時間が経ってから目を覚ました。そしていつまでも戻ってこない両親に不安感を募らせ泣き出した。その声を聞いて巡回中の公園作業員が話しかけて事故が発覚したことになっています。この時ですね、公園作業員の証言では両親が崖下に転落したと彼女が先に言ったというんですよ。ところがこの時北条夫妻が止めた車の位置からは問題の事故現場ははっきりと見えたわけじゃないはずなんです。いや、注意深く見れば柵が破損していたのを気づけたかもしれない。でもですよ、目が覚めたら両親がいないのを知って真っ先に崖下へ転落したというのは尋常ではないと思うんです。普通は両親が自分を置いてどこかに散歩に行ってしまい戻ってこないというはずなんです。転落する直接の現場を見てもいないのに両親が転落したと第三者にいきなり言うのがね、この辺りどうして彼女は両親が転落したと確信したのか、その経緯を教えてもらいたいと思いまして通い詰めているところだったんですよ。入院前に私も何度かお尋ねはしているんですが記憶にない。当時は混乱していたとまるでどこかの政治家みたいな答弁でしてね。 私はじっくり話をしてみる価値があるかなって思っていたんですよ。
The terrifying possibility has turned to certainty in my head. I'd assumed that her parents' accident triggered her terminal symptoms, but no. Satoko-chan had already gone terminal, and just before the accident, her heart was filled with paranoia that drove her mad. She was under a lot of stress because of her bad relationship with her stepfather. She was also being scolded by her mother for not being able to get along with him. If that made her paranoid, made her think her parents considered her to be a consider her to be a bother and were going to kill her. When they went to the viewing platform, she must have thought they were going to push her off the cliff. Then a tragedy took place and she pushed her parents off instead, although it's considered to have been in self-defense. I'm certain of that because I know Hinamizawa syndrome better than anybody. This accident isn't an accident. It is a crime. It isn't a crime either, like Oishi is thinking. It's simply a tragedy. When I talked to Satoshi-kun about the family, I was even more convinced. He told me that even though Satoko-chan refused to open up to her stepfather, he had tried to communicate with her. It's true that their relationship didn't go well in the beginning. Satoko-chan caused trouble repeatedly and even called the city's child abuse hotline. At that point, they received guidance from the Child Consultation Center, and they pointed out that the problem lay in the lack of communication between daughter and stepfather. So the stepfather took a parenting course under the social worker's guidance, and awkward though it was, he made efforts to communicate with her. Satoshi-kun noticed his efforts, and he tried to talk to Satoko-chan about it. But Satoko-chan didn't notice them at all. The excessive stress she was under triggered her terminal symptoms, and she couldn't understand her stepfather's remorse. On the contrary, her stepfather's change created even more mistrust within her. As a result, they went to enjoy the beautiful view at Shirakawa Natural Park as a family, and to share in that joy, yet that humble, ordinary family's wish couldn't even get through to Satoko-chan. What a tragic misunderstanding. Satoko-chan stayed in the car telling her parents that she wanted to sleep, but then she got out and snuck up behind them. I bet he heard her footsteps. He pretended not to notice her, thinking that she was doing it to surprise him. It's sad just thinking about what must have ran through his mind. While he thought he had finally gotten through to her, she was actually approaching him with the intent to kill. But that's not Satoko-chan's true nature. It's the disease. Satoko-chan isn't the only one who is to be pitied. Her parents are the victims too. And now Oishi thinks she's a criminal. Judgment and punishment are required for crimes with malicious intent. But what she really needs is understanding and sympathy, and no one has that understanding, except for me, because I know Hinamizawa syndrome. I am the director of the EDA Institute, but I've never behaved as such or exercised that authority, but I'm going to do so for the first time since taking that position. I'm not doing it as the head of the EDA Institute, the secret research organization. I'm doing it as a doctor, so I can protect Satoko-chan. Yo, Rhett, thank you for the 36 years subbing. Much appreciated. Well, there you go.
Yamainu そういうものの隠蔽や捏造に最も特化した部隊ですもの。確かに早くあの転落事故が事故ということに決着しないと警察がうちの実験体に近づいて邪魔ですものね。
そういうことです。特に大石さんがこの件から早く引き上げるよう試薬投与実験のデリケートな時期です。不要な進路をかけるのは適当ではありませんので。
まったくですわね。山犬にそのように伝えますわ。警察にもすでにコネクションがあるとのことなので圧力をかけるよう指示しましょう。
Red's older than Nintendo.
近日中に白川転落事故は事故として確定することになると思いますわ。
With that, it was declared an accident. If only it really was one, it would have eased Satoko-chan's soul. Getting rid of the pathogen can't heal that wounded soul, nor can it erase the tragedy that had already taken place. All I can do is my best so that the day she regains her smile comes sooner. Well, there you have it. That's the truth. There's the truth behind the Hojo couple's accident. And we're going to wrap on that today. Let's see how much progress we've made overall. Let's head on back. We got 5, 10, 15, 19, 22. We got 22 of 50 done. So we've still got a ways to go. Now your heart hurts. Dang, dude. Congrats on finishing the art regardless. But that is where we are going to stop for tonight. We will pick things back up Monday evening at about 7 o'clock, our usual time, because we will be doing a Sockscast tomorrow evening. So, Monday evening, more pieces. That's what we're going to do.